We're live. Just put your finger on it.
Yeah, you just lay it on there. Supposed to work that way. I might want to turn the ring around.
Turn mine off.
If I can talk to you easier. I know what emails work. Yeah.
Well, it does have a Sturgeon photo on there. So, I'm talking to you.
And so is this company from,
No, actually, we put the council. We support Sturgeon and.
Card is right up.
Got a nice hard hat out of today's ground.
Oh, yeah.
Just trying to take the gold shot. Bobby, I'm putting you in charge of this because you're literally her right hand. I'm gonna grab the sign up sheet. Right now, we've only got one person, but it was 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Just FYI.
Got it. Sorry. Yep. Hey, you know to do. You do this one first. Then that one.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to City of Graham's special meeting. This is our normal city council meeting, but we are having it on Monday night because there are some members of our council that are traveling out of town tomorrow. So we've rescheduled the meeting for tonight. So first off, we'll do our invocation. Bobby, would you like to do that?
Would you join me in prayer, please? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we can come as citizens of this great country to take care of the business of our community. Grant us wisdom and discernment as we look at the matters being brought before us. You have blessed us, dear Lord. We continue to ask that your hand rest upon us. These things we ask in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
And the Lord has blessed us this week. We had a major fire and didn't have anyone hurt. A lot of danger was associated with that. Had a wonderful Veterans Day parade this past Saturday to honor our veterans, and we were very happy to be able to participate in that as well. We have two wonderful veterans sitting right here. Air Force, Bonnie Whitaker, Bobby Chin, Army. And so we just say thank you to all of our veterans that make that day very special, and we certainly appreciate their service to this country. We had several, I loved the video that was online of all the police officers that also have served this country that loved getting to hear from them. I don't know if you guys got an opportunity to see that, but that's on the City of Graham's Facebook page, and they got to interview some of the individuals and what service means to them. So if everybody will please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And earlier this past week, on Wednesday, Alamance Elder Care had a ribbon cutting at their new facility on Elm Street. If you know where Dr. Chrisman's office, it's the back building there by South Court Drug. They opened. I apologize that I was unable to be there. I had gotten the notice about the ribbon cutting, but the date was a Thursday instead of a Wednesday. So I apologize. Didn't realize that discrepancy. I had gotten that from the chamber, and I apologize that the date was wrong, but we certainly welcome you to Graham. And I want to read this proclamation in honor of you guys coming here. So, in recognition and honor of Alamance Elder Care, whereas Alamance Elder Care is committed to helping our community age well, their programs and services are intended to maximize the health and well-being of older adults. And whereas Alamance Elder Care has been operating for the past 29 years and has recently moved to Graham in their new location on East Elm Street, and whereas the retirement dream is having time to spend with loved ones and making memories with their friends and family. However, many older adults experience life differently and need the services provided by Alamance Elder Care. And whereas Alamance Elder Care provides older adults and family caregivers with information about community resources that promote well-being, independence, and the ability to remain safely at home. And whereas Alamance Elder Care provides a certified options counselor to help individuals set goals and develop action plans. And whereas Alamance Elder Care offers a care management program dedicated to frail older adults, provides family caregiver support, and a community alternatives program for disabled adults. Now therefore, I, Jennifer Talley, Mayor of the City of Graham, by virtue of the authority vested in me, hereby welcome Alamance Elder Care to the City of Graham and commend them on their valuable services offered to our elderly population, presented this 13th day of November, 2023. And if you will come forward so that we can present you with this proclamation.
Person on the board of directors.
Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you. We will now move on to our consent agenda. A, to approve the October 10th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. B, to approve the Graham Area Business Association 62nd Annual Christmas Parade on December 2nd, 2023, and to approve the following parade route closures beginning at Parker Street from Sideview to Elm Street, proceeding down North Main Street to South Main Street and ending on McCaden Street at Graham Middle School parking lot. The requested closure of the streets would be from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. pending approval by NCDOT for state roads. C, to set a date for a public hearing for December 12th, 2023 to consider a contiguous annexation request pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 160A-31 to extend the corporate limits to the city of Graham for a tract of land totaling 53.904 acres for Phase 4, Roger Springs, and to direct the city clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition AN 2308 to appoint Mr. John Harrington to the Historical Museum Advisory Board to fulfill an unexpired term ending June 30th, 2024. E, to approve a budget amendment to increase budgeted professional services and admin by $10,000. F, to approve a budget amendment to increase budgeted wastewater capital outlay equipment by $50,000. G, to approve tax releases totaling $51,674.99 and refunds totaling $5,732.98. And I'll need a motion to approve, or is there any discussion from the council?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve as written.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Public hearings. We'll be doing the one, if you have a copy of the agenda, we'll be doing number 2 first. It was supposed to be listed first here. It's the rezoning 7.8 acres Sunset Drive. A public hearing has been scheduled to consider the rezoning of 7.8 acres at Sunset Drive from R7 high density residential and R18 low density residential to CR conditional residential to construct at least 42 townhomes. This is a public hearing, and if anyone is here to speak on the proposed rezoning, we ask that they would please raise their hand, and we're going to recognize Aaron Holland.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And I was going to clean up one thing in the staff report on the agenda. The project is to construct a maximum of 42 townhomes. It was listed as at least, so I just want to make sure I clear that up. So it's to construct a max of 42 townhomes. The site plan is to connect to the public water and sewer through Sunset Drive. The development plans to have one access point, a private drive connected to Sunset Drive. This project is within the recommended density of 3 to 6 dwelling units an acre. I have some notes here from TRC as well. TRC has noted that piece of land abutting parcel 147609 should be a type C landscaping buffer rather than the type D that's noted on the site plan, and to show the distances between buildings to ensure the necessary distance requirement is being met. TRC has also required the utilities in the roadways throughout the development to be public, not private, and a sidewalk is to be installed along the full frontage of Sunset Drive. Planning board did hear this at their meeting, and they recommend approval with conditions that the site plan include the distance between the buildings to allow 20 feet separation between buildings, the landscape buffer for the lot line abutting parcel 147609 must be changed from the D to the C planning type. Water and sewer are to be public, sidewalks must be installed along the frontage of Sunset Drive, and no landscape buffer required along the Duke Power easement side of the property. I'd be glad to
Can you
answer.
go over those conditions again?
It was a lot of
Oh, okay, I see it.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
lot of what TRC had said, but planning
Okay.
board basically incorporated it into their motion. But should be on the recommendation side. That's the air.
I'm like, are we taking off? What in the world?
Buckle up.
New HVAC system was installed here a couple of months ago. So what was the reasoning behind the no landscape buffer along the Duke Power easement?
I just think it's just the difficulty being able to plant something along that stretch there. They typically like to keep that area clear along that easement area.
Can you show me where that is on the map?
You see there on the screen?
And is there 2 or 3 houses there, or how many houses is that on Sunset?
That are existing.
Yeah,
We have a house here. And it looks like we have another one here.
and is the plans as drawn that show the 10 feet in between the buildings, or how many feet are in between the buildings as it's drawn now?
Kind of hard to read it here, but it's showing a site plan or just noted the 20 feet separation. Okay. That was a note.
What does it show now?
I'm not sure it's showing.
I don't think it does show now.
I don't think it's showing on there. That's why it was noted.
Well, when they drew it, what was the distance between the units?
It's showing 20. So average 20, but it was just noted at planning board that it be 20 minimum.
So some of it was 20 and some of it was not 20.
20 or more. It wasn't stated on there, so that's why planning board wanted to make sure it was stated.
But it's a minimum of 20. Can you bring up the type landscape for type D versus type C? Now, even though everyone on the council may be familiar with that, residents that might be here may not be familiar with what that means.
So you're looking at a type D is 5 feet on average, where the type C is 20.
So going from a type D to type C, it'd be going from 5 to 20, is that correct?
Mhm.
And that's the width, right?
That's correct.
How opaque is that?
You're adding an extra understory tree per 100 feet and extra shrub. So I'm not saying it's not tremendously more, but you're basically adding one extra plant along a 100-foot stretch. It's the width of the buffer that you're gaining.
But you wouldn't have any of that buffer backing up to those 2 homes, is that right?
Based on the request to not have anything It would just be, I'm not sure what the natural area looks like now. The applicant had to speak to that because I haven't walked that side. I just drove by it. I'm not sure what mature trees are out there currently. Not much. So. Yeah, and they typically try to keep that clear because they don't want to have anything growing into that space.
But on the other side of it, could you have a buffer there?
More interior line.
I mean,
More in here.
yeah. Is that part of the property?
This part is, yes.
Yeah. Okay, this is a public hearing. You finished, Aaron?
I am.
Okay, it's a public hearing. If anybody is here to speak on the rezoning of the 7.8 acres on Sunset Drive, if you could please raise your hand and come forward. Sure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Council. Amanda Hodiern, 804 Green Valley Road, Suite 200 in Greensboro. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard on this item tonight, and I will address the conditions that came up from Planning Board and sort of what the discussion was that led to those as we go. If we could go to the next slide, please. First of all, I want to mention who I'm here tonight for. I'm representing Triad Classic Homes. That is the entity that has this property under contract for purchase. Actually, they've closed on one of the parcels. You see it's 3, and they have the other 2 under contract. So that entity is comprised of Ned Pierce, Dwayne Dasher, and Chuck Jones. They're longtime home builders here in the area, have built several communities across Alamance County, including some here in Graham that you may be familiar with, that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Are those the people that bought it, or are those the people that sold it?
They're the people that have it under contract to purchase.
And who did they
They've closed
purchase
on
it?
one of the lots so far.
And who were they purchasing the R18 lots from?
Let's see, the record owner at this time. Let me look on the staff report here. Keith Dotson. It's a trust. The principal or the person, the natural person in the trust is Keith Dotson.
Okay.
So we also have with us tonight Gene Mustin of Borum Wade, who did our civil engineering work. So since this has been through the TRC process, he can speak to the plan that's before you tonight. So I wanted to first look at the zoning context here. It's important for a couple reasons. One, as you can see, we are primarily adjoined by other residential properties. We do have some commercial in front of us, that B2 property that fronts on the Highway 54 corridor. But we also have a variety of densities and neighborhood types around here. We've got a CR zoning in the middle of Sunset Drive that of course is not built out. We've got the R18 in the immediate proximity, and we've got the R12 subdivision to the, I guess, northeast, if you will. Most compellingly, however, the subject property itself, save for the 2 less than an acre lots, less than half an acre even lots down on Sunset, is zoned R7, which of course is high density here in the city of Graham. And what that means is that you can have 7,000 square foot lots. So this property has already been contemplated by the city, I would submit to you, to be residential of a certain density. So what this plan does is comes in as a conditional residential request and provides some certainty and some commitment to that residential component, an element that's already been established here. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Always like to get an idea of what's going on in the area from a land use standpoint. And here the main compelling story is the location of this property along the thoroughfare corridors and the interstate corridor. So you of course see in yellow, that's the travel corridors. The one at the diagonal top of the screen is I-40. And you can see that this is of course an interchange here at Highway 54. So you've got folks coming up 54 to get to the interstate. And of course, off the interstate and down 54 to get home, not only to Swepsonville and then on, to Pittsburgh or wherever. So this is a highly sought after travel corridor where people already are. They're already going to be using these routes. This is a desirable place to live for that reason. And I would guess that that's probably why this property is already zoned R7, because someone already had that thought and knew that this would be a good residential location. It's also near a lot of goods and services, which of course people like. So you've already got the Highway 54 established with several eateries, shopping places, office uses, medical uses. So to live here is very convenient and would provide someone with that whole bubble of everyday experiences that we need to serve our daily life. If we could go to the next slide, please. So a couple of highlights about this request. As I alluded to earlier, this is, of course, a conditional residential request. And what that means is that you get a site plan commitment with it. And that's, of course, been through your TRC process. So we'll look at it in a moment. You've looked at it a little bit already. But some highlights that you see there are that we're showing right now a maximum of 42 units. So that means, of course, that we've drawn this out. We've done some preliminary engineering. It's vetted through your TRC review, and we're showing 42 units at this time. It doesn't mean that we're guaranteed to get that many once all the final engineering is done. So that's why Mr. Holland's note at the beginning of the meeting or at the beginning of the hearing is important, because we're not guaranteed 42 units, and we certainly can't go above it. If anything, we'd be under that and would not be allowed to go over it. The site plan also commits to internal sidewalks throughout the project. It's got open space that we'll look at that includes activated elements such as walking paths and a gathering gazebo. It has on-site stormwater management, which meets both the local and state regulations. This project also has some public benefit and impact in that it's extending your utility infrastructure across Highway 54, which is a significant expense and opens that possibility up to all of these properties on this side of Highway 54. So one of the TRC comments was that our water and sewer easements be public within our project, so that as other development comes along, it can utilize those. So we've agreed to that. And those will be public easements for water and sewer, so that as the city grows in this direction, those tap-ons or connection points will be available. We've talked about this already. The current zoning of R7 is for high density. That's what it's termed in your ordinance, and would allow somewhere between 46 and 48 units once you take out the two small R18 parcels. So that could be done today. Let's call it 45 units even, with no public hearings and no site planning. So I like this project. I think it's well tailored and reasonable in that it's less than what could already be done, which tells me that it's in keeping with what the city sees for this area. It's really just about form and how those units are delivered. So if we could go to the next slide, please. This is a more user-friendly version of our site plan. Sometimes it's a little easier to see things when we take off all the black and white line work. So you see here the 42 units that we've mentioned. You see the internal street network, the sidewalks that are established on one side of each of Road 1 and Road 2. You see the stormwater facility in the bottom southern corner. You see the open space, which is significant. Down there at the bottom, you talked about it earlier. So the bottom of where the cursor is right now is that Duke Power easement. And that is a recorded title item, meaning it's on record on the Alamance County Register of Deeds. Duke Power has those easement rights, and it has requirements of what can and cannot go in there. You can't go vertical in the easement. You really can't have any vegetation of note in there. If you do, they have the right to come in and cut it down so that they can maintain and repair their lines. So that's why the vegetation out there is really not very significant or mature in that easement, because of the rights and obligations to Duke in that space. It is 60 feet, just to give you a sense of scale. That's a 60-foot easement. And then if you double that, more than double it, you're looking at another 70 to 80 feet before you get to the back of those units, 28 through 38. So, and Gene Mustin, I'm sure, could give you better scale on that. So that is a significant chunk of space. We do have a walking trail through there. You can do that in the easement because it's low. And then that takes you to a gazebo where folks can gather and have neighborhood events, parties, birthdays, some outside time in the shade. So we've tried to utilize that space and make it part of the project to give us some spacing off those homes on Sunset Drive, and then to also augment our open space views there and sense of breathability. On the other side of Road 1, closer to Highway 54, you see a little walking trail network as well between the second and third buildings. And that's also just some activation space to enliven the open space, make it more usable, give folks an opportunity to recreate on site. You've got the internal sidewalk network and then the walking trails. And then, of course, we get down to Sunset, which we've also committed by condition to put sidewalk along that entire frontage. So really trying to give people a pedestrian option to get all the way to Highway 54. Of course, as the city grows and develops in keeping with your current ordinances along this corridor, everyone will have sidewalks. So that way we're a part of that as things progress. We also
Can I-
have the
can I
mail
just
kiosk,
ask
of
you-
course. Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, I just want to ask you something before I forget. The sidewalk you said would go down 54?
No, we don't control any property on
Right,
54.
that's
So
what I
what we
didn't-
can do is get it as close to 54 as we have along Sunset. That's what TRC asked for, to put sidewalks not only on our internal drives, but along our Sunset Drive frontage. So we've committed to that. That's where that condition came from. I'll go ahead and speak to the planning board conditions here as well. TRC also noted that we just had an incorrect notation on our site plan about that type buffer. We had it type D labeled in that upper left-hand corner, and it should have been type C, because if you look back on your zoning map, that's a residential property up in that corner. Just below it is commercial property, which is, of course, is the type D buffer. So that was just a mistake on our part that we're happy to fix, of course. The condition about the landscape buffer in the easement, Madam Mayor, that you asked about, that was actually brought up by Mr. Huffine on the planning board. Of course, being an engineer, he notices this stuff. And he actually asked for that to be a condition because he wanted it, to be in the record that it was intentional. And so in case none of us are sitting here, in however much time when this site plan comes through, that we would all know that that's why that wasn't there. Because we're not allowed to put it along the property line where the ordinance would require it. And then if we were to put it along the northern edge of that 60-foot easement, it would just sort of bifurcate that open space. We could do that. We could start it, once we get past, kind of past where that walking trail turns northward. We could do that. It just would be a kind of random location. Just a line of trees in the middle of an otherwise open area that might have more benefit to it if it were a nice expanse of open space. At least that was the thinking of the planning board. Let's see. Oh, the 20-foot between buildings. Again, that was TRC just saying, hey, this isn't noted. We want to know what it's supposed to be so that we know what we're looking for when the fully designed, engineered construction drawings come in. So we were asked to give that number and to note it on the plans just so it wouldn't be an unknown. So we measured that out. Most of our buildings were measuring just over 20 feet. So we put it at 20 feet. And just for reference, in talking to Mr. Mustin, our engineer, that is the standard separation between townhome buildings. So as you drive around in Graham and other areas, 20 feet is the typical separation. So that we wanted to be in keeping with that. Let's see if there's anything else that we talked about. Of course, they asked for the easements for water and sewer to be public, which we were happy to do. And the Sunset Drive sidewalk, which we talked about. So if we could go to the next slide, please. As we look specifically at what this would look like, should this be a favorable project and be able to move forward. As I mentioned, my clients are career home builders. They've been perfecting, I would say, this particular floor plan and home style for a number of years now. And they've got a strong showing that this is a very sought after type of community and home. It's all one floor, fully maintained exterior grounds. That's in the declaration. That's part of your HOA dues. Each home has a 1-car garage and then a double full driveway, meaning parks the entire car without hanging over the sidewalk. So what that gives you is 3 spaces per unit off the street. It's got the activated recreational space that we've already talked about, which is spread throughout the community, and it is accessible. It's not hidden behind, units where you have to seem like you're walking through somebody's yard just to get to it. If you look at the floor plan here, it might be a little easier to see in your packets, but again, we talked about this being all one floor. It's got 2 dedicated bedrooms, and the real kicker, I guess, that the home builders have liked about this floor plan and that has been very desirable as they've used this product is the flex room. There in the middle of the floor plan, some folks use it as an office, some folks use it as a dining room, some as a workout room, some put a futon in there for the grandkids. So it really just provides that what you need element as you're in a home of this type, but it doesn't have to be a bedroom that you have to keep up or be dead space if you don't need it. Some other communities, there's a community here in Gibsonville or down the road in Gibsonville called Walnut Ridge that is this exact floor plan. That community's just opened. It's got a model open. So that really shows, what this looks like tangibly. High level of finishes. This is typically a product, they've built it enough and they've worked in this space enough to know who's buying it. And it's typically folks who are downsizing and still want that high level of construction, high quality finishes, and a home where, they can move the things from their last home that they still want to keep and be sort of fluid. They also have projects here in Graham that you might be familiar with. A little bit of variation on the floor plan, but this 1-story attached home in Riverwalk, that's my clients did that. And also in Oldfields off of Cherry Lane, there's an attached townhome product there that my clients built. Autumn Ridge in Swepsonville also has a lot of this type of product that my clients have been working on for many years and has stayed very successful and sells very well. Oftentimes they'll have buyers who come to one community and maybe don't find the unit they want, and they'll end up buying from my client in another community. So that's, they have that type of resume and experience with their buyers. A couple of elements you see here that make it nice is the differentiated roof line across the building. You get the pushed out gabling across the front porch. The high level of landscaping and that textured facade using the brick and the board and batten to give some nice variability. If we could go to the next slide, please. Of course, in rezonings, we always want to look at comprehensive plan compliance. In this case, of course, we did feel like we were on the right track given the R7 existing zoning, but we did want to look at the fact that this is this is designated suburban residential in your future land use plan. That tells us that you're looking for 3 to 6 units an acre. You're looking for compact walkability and diverse product, and you're looking for a connected community. So I hope you'll agree you've heard all 3 of those elements tonight. We meet that density range where we're under 6 units an acre. If we were to be able to do the full 42 units, of course, we're compact. This is almost an infill, really, by coming into this finite amount of property here just off the corridor. It's walkable with the sidewalk system that connects all the way out to our furthest extent. And it is a diverse housing type since all the other neighborhoods we look at around it are single family. So this infuses an attached product type with that exterior maintenance. If you're looking for that into this part of Graham, if this is where you want to be, which it is for a lot of folks. And it's a connected community for those same walkable reasons we've talked about. It meets your policy 5.1.1, which looks for a housing variety. Of course, every home buyer is different. They want different things. So we want to try to meet them at all needs. And it meets 5.2.1 for a diverse neighborhood, which we've talked about already. The infusion of attached homes here that give you those maintenance options, that give you that 1-story living option, that compact HOA style community. Here in this part of Graham where you can easily get up and down 54 or back and forth on Highway 40, Interstate 40. If we go to the next slide, please. We did reach out to our neighbors in our community to see what they had to think. I sent out 17 letters using the city's notification range that you all send your information to for this project. We held an informational meeting that we invited everybody to back in September, and we actually held it at my client's model home over in Oldfields off of Cherry Lane, so that folks could come and be in one of these spaces and see it and in a location that was convenient. But no one attended. So I hope that means that folks felt like this made sense when they heard about the project. I did receive 2 phone calls who just asked me about what it was and what was being proposed. And I answered the questions and encouraged them to come to the meeting. I told them it would be at one of the units in the style that we were proposing here, but we did not have any attendees. At Planning Board, as you've heard, we did receive a favorable recommendation. We got a lot of good guidance and fine tuning on some of the technical aspects, which you've heard about tonight. We did not have anyone speak at that public hearing, either for or against, other than ourselves, of course. So we had a good discussion just amongst staff and among the Planning Board. So with that, I will pause and look to hear what you have to say and help answer any questions. And I would remind you that I have both Ned Pierce, the home builder, here with me, and Jean Mustin, our civil designer.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Real quick. Is this gonna be one of those communities that has like an age restriction, or is it for older
Nope.
people? Is it for anybody or,
The term, I believe, is age targeted, but not restricted.
okay.
So no,
not
no deed restrictions, no having to
Okay.
show your license, but it's, anybody can live here, but we have noticed, or my client has noticed, it does tend to be sort of that active
Yeah.
adult demographic.
Especially being one story and the bedrooms are on opposite ends too. That's kind of nice. So
It is nice.
Yeah.
I'm available as needed. Thank you.
Was there anyone that was at the planning board meeting, Aaron? Okay, notice went out to all the property owners on Sunset. Get any mail returned or anything like that? Did anybody hear from that development, from that area? Ms. Whitaker? Are y'all here to speak on this development? Yes. Can you? Okay, can you? Okay. Do you mind going to the microphone? Just state your name and state your address.
Here, let me just take this.
Melinda Whittemore, 1088 Noah Road, Graham.
Okay.
But I was just asking about the buffer. There's tree buffer there between the Whittemore property. Most all of those houses along Whittemore were my family's. And so they had a buffer between the back of their lots, their property.
Can you show where that is, Aaron?
Yeah. And so below the arrow, that would be right.
So is there any kind of vegetation there now? There is.
So a line of trees. I haven't been back there to see how wide it is, but there's a line of trees. It's enough for a nice buffer.
So,
And they're taking so many trees down as it is. In general.
have they already started taking trees down?
No, I mean, just
Oh,
we're losing trees everywhere.
yeah.
So I was just hoping that they would leave the trees.
okay.
That was our only
Concern?
question. Mhm.
Okay.
Could you repeat your address on Whittemore again?
I'm on Noah Road, which Whittemore
Okay.
goes to Noah. And my mother lives on Whittemore.
Because I walked that when I was in water side. So did the residents on Whittemore Drive get letters as well? Okay.
Where they want to put this, it's gonna back up to my home place. I want to know if there's gonna be some type of a barrier
Would you
that
give your,
separates my land, our land from this housing development. Donna Whittemore.
Can you pull it up on GIS, Aaron? Maybe that would be easier just. to be
We
able
own a
to see it.
60-acre plot right behind there.
So I will say, you know, we talked to developers quite a bit about that if a buffer is required to please not take out existing mature trees and then put back little stick trees that are immature trees, and to try to build with the land and to try to save as many existing trees as possible in order to keep your barrier. Obviously, the developer's going to want to clean out the weeds and the overgrowth and all that kind of stuff to make it look more intended vegetation rather than just existing, but we can certainly talk to the developer and see what their intentions are so that you have a better understanding of, because I totally get it. There's a lot of people that will call and say, well, I thought the developer said we would have a 20-foot buffer, and they're
Good north.
they clean out, you know, they completely clear cut the entire area and then go back and just plant new trees. And the neighbors are very upset when they see all the existing trees cut down. And I can certainly understand that. So I appreciate you coming tonight.
See, Sunset Drive. Are you gonna take down houses? There's houses out there. I had the impression from what my aunt told me is, the property was owned by Hooper and Pam Sarton. Their parents are deceased. That backs up to our property. That's all where I thought this development was gonna go.
So there's no houses on this property here. Do you see where it says 848 right there? Where
Right,
So
right.
that's the entrance off of Sunset. And they would be buying both the lots on either side. Is that right, Aaron? Yeah, those two. And then all of that land there in the middle that doesn't have any houses on it.
Okay, that must be the Sartons' land. Evidently, they still own that. We got different generations coming in here now.
I think they've bought it. I think this developer's
Has
bought it.
Bought the Sartons' land.
Uh,
Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, Aaron, can you click on, Aaron, can you click on that, 147,613?
The Keith Dodson had already purchased it.
Okay, he must have bought it from them.
You can scroll down, Aaron, and see.
I see now. Mhm.
Keep going. Yeah, but you can keep going
Right.
and see.
Okay,
So it had to have been prior to 1999.
okay,
You can click on a history, but I mean, he's owned it at least since 1999.
okay.
But,
That
I-
backs up to my home place. We have a pond and then my home place, and then we just have a gate and a fence that divides that property from ours.
okay. Is your property up on the right with that pond, or is it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
there?
Okay.
And it extends.
And is your house to the north of that?
Yes,
Oh, there, that's your house?
yes. Mhm.
Okay. Mhm. Okay. Did you have any other concerns other than the
No, I
buffer?
just wondered if there was gonna be some type of a barrier, because
Okay.
I don't like civilization. I don't want it close to me or my property. That's all.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So Amanda, if you could come back up and answer some questions about the buffer, whether you're gonna leave existing 20-foot buffer and just clean out around the existing trees, or whether you plan on clear cutting the trees and just going back with a new buffer.
I think that the goal would be, because it's better for us too, if we could maintain the mature perimeter, because it's, to your point, it's already there. And anything we plant would have to be, weighted to get to that state. So we'd like to be able to keep it, with a neighborhood like this, we do have to kind of go with the land, but with a neighborhood like this where is pretty compact, there might be an ability to go in and just do the middle area and leave a lot of that perimeter. But, unfortunately today we just don't know how far back with the slopes and the cut and the fill that they would have to grade. That said, of course, whatever we do disturb would have to be planted back to the rigorous requirements of your ordinance, which doesn't allow little stick trees. It has a minimum caliper requirement. And also it's in the best interest of the neighborhood. So my client will want to do that as well. His home buyers want to come in and see some vegetation too. So, we want to be good neighbors. We want to, don't want to create a compound or anything, but we understand privacy and separation and not, completely changing somebody's view shed. That they do have, I talked to 2 Whittemores, that was my 2 phone calls. So I apologize. I'm not sure which ones I spoke to, maybe you or anyway. So we did talk about this. We talked about the prescribed buffers and the ways those have to be planted so that, yes, there's a tree separation between the properties. I would also note that with a community like this, that is all HOA maintained and has all that required landscaping that the HOA is taking care of, it's going to be a nice finished product next to them. We will be a good neighbor. We have that commitment to our homeowners and to our adjacent neighbors. And it's not like they're going to have to rely on individual homeowners to keep the landscaping nice. The HOA is going to be doing that. The HOA dues are going to be paying for that. So it is a self-running machine to keep those buffers nice. And it's not reliant upon who happens to live there.
Aaron, on that, Mandy, you might want to stay. I have some questions. When you go back to the part where they're looking to put the retention pond, how much of that do you believe will be water? I'm concerned for the person that owns the house beside that.
I'll let Jean answer that one.
Well, I say you might want the engineer that designed it to speak on that one. She wants to know how much water is expected to be in the pond.
How much earth do you think you'll be? I mean, I don't know what the topography of that property is. Is there a lot of earth that's going to be moved and a lot of runoff that would be going into that?
Yes, so the bulk of the runoff from the property would have to be piped into the pond. So it would be something that would be probably the size of 2 or 3 townhome buildings, probably about the size of the pond itself, where the water would be. Something like that. Excuse me?
The water, I think she wants you to speak to whether or not the water level.
Oh, the water would have to ebb and flow as the storms are created, yes, and then it would discharge to Sunset in accordance with the stormwater.
How deep do you anticipate? I mean, do you think?
Typically, these things are about, why don't we say 4-foot average depth? So you might be 4 to 5 feet.
Have you heard of a retention pond that is not a holding pond for water, but it basically is filled with sand and it
Yeah.
basically filters the water?
Yes, so there's more than one option in the state manual that we follow through. It's called we can do a biocell, planted biocell, sand filters, which are not quite as pretty as the biocells and the planted biocells. What happens is when you get this much water, which is 7 or 8 acres, it generally lends itself more to a pond as opposed to one of those. They get overly large. Used to that you only could build a biocell with 5 acres of drainage, and the state has finally changed that. So
I'm not saying that we couldn't look into that design, when we do the finals.
Something to consider.
It is very much something we could consider with Josh when we do the designs to see if it would work. Yes.
He's shaking his head. No, Josh is.
Think it needs to be a pond? Yeah, that was my initial thought on this particular one, to use a pond. We've worked with Josh on using some of these other items in other communities. But this particular one, your drainage area is probably getting large enough that it needs to be a pond.
That
So the-
said, I will add that of course your ordinance also has beautification standards for the ponds. You know, they can't just be a water hole in the ground, so they have to be fenced for safety and of course landscaped, so that, yeah, and again, we have a high interest in making sure that's aesthetic as well. It's at our front door.
Right.
So we're gonna want that to look nice as well. We don't want something there that's unsightly, that sets a bad tone for the whole neighborhood right after you come off of the main corridor, the only way to get to us.
So will there be any fencing at all around that for protection?
The ordinance requires it.
There's a retaining wall.
Retaining wall? Okay, and will this drain into like a storm drainage system? Or will it just naturally disperse?
So the discharge from the pond will have to go downhill towards the drainage that's already in Sunset. We'll have to make sure that the discharge of the pond does not exceed, what Sunset Drive ditch is already receiving. We have to back the water up enough to keep that from
'Cause
overloading the ditch anymore than it's being now.
Because we already have flooding on that 54 area right there on that water course, and that area is prone to flood anyway. Just want to make sure
And
that
I mean,
that's addressed.
it's a lot of water.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can't even get across the bridge. And everybody that's on that other side of that bridge cannot, if there's an emergency or something, I mean,
Mhm.
it's a lot of water. It's not something you can safely drive through, wouldn't you say, Aaron? I mean, I was out there,
Yeah, down there on that, that
Yes.
watershed that comes up through Woody and back towards, Whittemore is,
it floods all 4 lanes.
Good evening. Josh Johnson, Williams Carmody King, your city engineer. So to Mr. Chen's question about the sand filter, city-wise, we don't prefer sand filters due to ongoing maintenance issues related to them in residential sections. The other issue is that this is an area that does have extenuating water quantity problems, flooding problems. So water quality ponds are about as good as you can get as far as addressing that. The sizing for other types of stormwater control measures are based upon water quality versus we would want the requirement during the design process would be for this to meet quantity and quality.
Okay.
And that's the reason that it's almost surely going to be a wet pond. And that'll be about 4 feet deep, roughly between 3 and 6, roughly. To Joey's question, the ordinance does not require fencing in Graham around ponds. That's an option that the homeowner can choose, or that the builder or developer can choose. We don't prevent it, but we don't require it. There are beautification requirements and there are ongoing maintenance requirements as far as, making it attractive and making it safe. Where all of the ponds have a water quality shelf that's 6 feet wide, that's at the permanent water level. Idea being that you're, above that, it's going to be at a better slope, but that's going to be a kind of a flat area that it makes it safer, shows that it reduces issues and things like that. So, but in Graham, we do not, the ordinance does not require a fence. So there are some other places we work that do, but Graham's ordinance does not.
And what happened in past projects that you're referring to, the fencing came as a requirement from council as a condition whenever the neighborhood wanted it. So
And this is a conditional rezoning, so the council could decide that they want fencing.
Right, so it's your choice if you want to have it or not.
In some cases, we would prefer staff-wise, there is a safety benefit to having a fence. There's also an aesthetic benefit to not having a fence, in that it becomes part of the community if it's doesn't have a fence. If it has a fence, many times it becomes overgrown and then can become a maintenance concern. So there's a cost benefit to fences around ponds.
So, have you looked at the water issue that they have down there from that flooding? And I guess my concern is that this would just contribute to that already.
So this will actually be discharging down from there. Where you're talking about is upstream. It's Woody Drive primarily. This is going to be discharging downstream of there, but it's still an area that we're concerned about
That
flooding.
went all the way to BNC Grocery. I mean,
Right.
all the way
That's-
down, and then what's that
Also,
next, Ivy Road?
yes.
They had flooding all the way down to Ivy.
So Sunset comes in on directly across from Ivy, basically. And the stream crosses underneath 54 before you get there. The stream that this will be discharging to, my memory is that that's a different drainage channel to the one that is the primary tributary. The flooding you're talking about is Town Branch, which is the eastern and northern part of Graham going underneath, where it comes underneath the interstate and then goes down through what used to be the lake that used to be there that had the dam is still partially present down there just beyond watercourse. That's the area that you're describing, and that was actually, I mean, but yeah, this is slightly different. It's adjacent, but it's slightly different, but it's still an area that we would make, the requirement would be for the 100-year storm per the drainage design manual. We would make them match the easy requirement is a 10-year. When we have problems with downstream flooding, we make them match the 100-year pre-development runoff rate. That's already in the ordinance and we can already do that.
I just want assurance from you that we are not creating a larger problem. So, if you're the engineer, I'm happy to defer to your judgment, but I'm telling you what my expectation is that I don't want this to be additional problems. I mean, the community over there argued and fought against the apartments that were built there and said that the runoff that they already were incurring before the apartments were built was tremendous. And then when those apartments were built, I mean, it literally looked like something at a water park. I mean, it was terrible. And I don't blame those residents for being very upset because with all the runoff that was going on during construction, it was really dangerous. I mean, it will absolutely float your car.
Mhm.
And the fire department had to close the road, and there was no other way out at that particular point. And they have concerns obviously about that for emergency purposes. So you can assure us that this is going to go somewhere else and that we're not going to have more of a problem, then I trust your judgment.
So I can assure you that. I can
Okay.
also add that the condition from a council perspective would be that the property meet the pre-development runoff rate for the 100-year storm. And that could be a condition that you could add to the approval.
Could you state that again?
Yes.
That the runoff,
The runoff will meet the pre-development runoff rate for the 100-year storm.
Josh, is that the same ordinance standard you were saying you would already have invoked here?
Yes.
runoff will meet the pre-development rate for the 100-year
Storm event.
storm event. Okay. All right. Aaron, the road that we have existing now on Sunset, this would bring potentially, several, more than 100 cars a day potentially coming out of that subdivision. What is the condition of Sunset now? And their only access is through Sunset Drive, right?
That's correct. So they would access that property via Sunset. That's a DOT road. And during TRC, DOT has already worked with the developer on any improvements that they may or may not have to do for that particular project. But it is built to DOT standards as is a NCDOT road.
But I'm not gonna hear from the people on Sunset saying our roads like gravel, right?
It's paved.
No, I'm saying after all the trucks going in and out of there.
Yeah.
Those are the phone calls I get saying our road is no longer a road, it's gravel. How old is the road?
Yeah, being that these aren't transfer trucks running up and down, you know, it's a slightly different situation, I think. And it's not as many trips when you look at it in comparison to a much larger subdivision on a much smaller road, I guess. But these are NCDOT roads, so you know they're actually made to actually move
Okay.
cars.
And can you tell me about the history of the R7 there? Why that property would be the only property in that area that's zoned R7? Did somebody come and request R7 and get that approved, or what was it previously?
I think this might be before my time on this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it got that zoning. It is an ideal zoning in the sense that you can put some dense development there with 7,000 square foot lots. So you actually can, as Amanda was alluding to, you can get quite a bit single family homes just as it stands now.
How many homes would that be?
45 to
Over
47.
40.
I was gonna say around 50, but yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
And what is the purpose of making them put the sidewalk in on Sunset if it goes to nowhere and is the lots all the way from where they go on Sunset, on the front of Sunset to 54? Are they not already developed? Do they not already have houses on them, or are they just lots?
Well, I think the idea of anytime we have new development, especially in an area where you're seeing more development occur, is to minimize the city's responsibility to connect those sidewalks as time goes
No.
on.
I know the reason. I'm just saying are there not houses already there? Like, it's just
Yeah.
odd to me that we put sidewalks in that
There's
we,
no sidewalks.
no, I know, but,
They-
but what I'm saying is, are there houses already there? Like,
Yes. There's one right in the curve.
Are you talking on this side?
That's a business. Then there's a house right there. And there's a house
I'm gonna bring the GIS.
on the other
back up.
side along Sunset. And then as you get to the corner, you can see right, yeah, there's homes.
All that on Sunset's already
Yeah,
developed.
so it's all.
It is and it isn't, to interrupt, sorry, but that internal parcel there's a conditional use plan that was approved several years ago for the internal. And there've been some inquiries regarding development of that internal piece, of which they would be required to put sidewalk in, which this would connect to, which would get you out to 54.
so that's my question. That's
Yeah.
where I was going with that,
That's
because if you're gonna make them put in the sidewalk and you know that the future development's not gonna be on that side, like, how do you make it connect, I guess, so that you have you have a,
So as that lot 147607 in the middle develops, they would have to connect to the sidewalk. And then they would have to run it out there, which would get you almost all the way out to 54.
And this was a townhome.
That was a townhome project
I want to say about 30-something townhomes.
that was approved, but the recent inquiries have not been to recreate that, but have been a much lesser density.
We've had
But
inquiries.
it would, at this point, we expect it would come back, but there is a development potential of that property.
and
So
so you're requiring sidewalk from, show me where you're requiring sidewalk, all the way, those three rectangles that, you see the thing blinking?
yes,
You're requiring sidewalk right there, right?
I believe that is correct.
Okay, and then how are you gonna get the people on Sunset? Are they gonna do the sidewalk on the other side of the road?
I would anticipate that. Yes.
Okay, so they would do the sidewalk on where the the neighbors have that house and that neighbor has that house and go all the way down to 54?
Yes,
Okay. That makes sense to me.
yes.
Like,
It makes sense in the grander scheme of
I
things.
get
So your
upset
question
when
makes
we
sense.
make
yes.
people put in sidewalks that will never go to anywhere.
Right.
That makes no sense to me.
Yes,
So if you make it make sense and you're gonna have an actual sidewalk that's gonna go somewhere, fine.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Um. So I think people might be concerned. Um. You haven't heard from the person there. That's to the right of the lot that you're gonna buy on the right. You haven't heard from those two people there. The concern, if I lived in those houses, is that the open space behind me is gonna be a park, and some people don't want a park in their backyard. People feel they don't know where the park ends and this person's backyard begins. Is there anything that kind of keeps that from being a problem there?
So to answer your first question, no, we have not heard from those folks. And, I think it's open space that we tried to, activate and make meaningful, but certainly not a park. If you go back, Mr. Holland, to my presentation, thank you. So the little walking trail and gazebo we have is about as far away from those lots on Sunset as we could get, to, to keep it more for our residents and not a confusion to them. And also we have the 60-foot power easement that separates us.
Okay.
Power is
So it's
between
a
those
pretty
lots
Yeah,
clear,
it's
open area.
it's a clear line of demarcation.
So they're
Okay.
already cleared off.
That's where the new
Okay.
power line goes.
Mhm.
That's right. And
They
conveniently,
already back up to
yeah,
that.
and
so.
conveniently it runs the lot line. So they know exactly where their backyard ends.
Okay. No, I was thinking about the new residents, as long as they can tell that they're not going into somebody else's backyard.
Right. Similarly, they'll also see the change in landscape between what we can do with our open space versus
Okay.
the cut down area.
And
of
you
the-
anticipate having like a gazebo type area in that open space there?
Right. You see the pull out little vignette down at the bottom. That's what that would look like.
Okay. And then, Aaron, show me where the water sewer connections you said for future development would go.
That would be on Sunset right there.
It'd be in the road.
And are you saying that where do they end now? On 54?
Other side. It's on the other side of
Here's one,
54,
Ivy.
so we have to bring it across.
So
up to-
can you show me real quick where they're gonna be bringing it? And then obviously, there's gonna be a lot of interest in developing that middle section as soon as you say you have water sewer there.
Yes, ma'am.
That's gonna be the catalyst that's gonna say
Yes, ma'am.
it's gonna happen. And, it's interesting that a lot more people are not here because, once that turns into 48, if that turns into 40-some townhomes and then that middle section, which is already, they'd have to come back before because they're expired on their conditional rezoning, right?
I don't know if they're expired or if it's no longer it's seen as a feasible plan. I'm not entirely sure.
So a conditional zoning doesn't expire. A special use does. So a conditional zoning, what happens after 24 months, council can then rescind it if they so choose. So it can sit as a conditional zoning even after that time frame, but council has the right, if they so choose, to come off of it and go back to the whatever zone that you want to change it to.
As you're aware, about a year and a half ago, we changed the standards for conditional zoning to require more of a staff review before it came to you. That previous one was perhaps done a little hastily prior to that timeline.
Is that same developer still own it?
I don't know who owns it.
It's a different person that came in.
It was the people that we've talked to recently were different people. So But yes, if you're looking for where the water and sewer would come down to, they will have to bore underneath Highway 54 for the sewer. And I believe that the water is in 54, or they were gonna have to bore underneath 54. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yes.
But it would come all the way up past to the last lot that they would be purchasing. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, sorry, the water's on the other side and the sewer is on their side, but yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
And they'd be bringing both those utilities up there, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Madam Mayor, this is a point of clarification, not their project, but reference was made to the sort of loop out in the middle of Sunset that had a previous project. I thought I understood the description to be townhouses, but my recollection is that that was the original proposal. The final approval by the council was for 19 single-family homes in that middle section.
His memory's pretty good. I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember I don't, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, all right. His research is much
You're
better.
funny. You're real funny. You were trying to say that you remember that, but no, you didn't remember it. You looked it up.
But it didn't.
You referenced your
just
newspaper
a
article.
way of information to something that was referenced, not.
Thank you.
If I could have one question for
Yes.
for this, though.
Mr. Boney, step up to the mic so we can all hear you.
Just for clarification on this, there was discussion earlier, if I understood the attorney to say that it was their intention to have a fence around the pond, but I wasn't sure whether that was the developer's intent or whether it was based on the assumption or the understanding that the city required it, that the engineer has now said doesn't require it. So I'm just wondering what the final decision is, if there is one yet, on a fence around the pond.
I think they're willing to do it if the council's going to have the majority require it. I feel like that's probably the case. Okay, I will say that I did look at the product, and Aaron, if you don't mind, do you mind looking up the one? I didn't see the one at Old Fields. Do you have an address for Old Fields?
It's Old Fields.
I know that is on my neighborhood newsletter.
Well, I'd like to see that, but, so the units that you have in Gibsonville are 3 wide, is that right?
That particular building. There's some that are.
Okay. And you're proposing that all of these be, is it 6 or 5?
2s and 3s.
2 to 6.
So,
What was the name of the one in, wasn't it?
Gibsonville called Walnut Ridge.
It's not gonna be on there yet.
no, it's on there. Yes, it is. And the price was, I thought I was looking at it wrong. $306,000? What, $307,000? Yeah, I thought that was not, that's for 1 unit. 1 2-bedroom unit. Okay. Not a starter home.
Can't build starter homes.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, that's not a starter home. My question is that when I looked at the model, and I know sometimes when you're looking at the model, it's all the options. I didn't see a lot of crown molding, but I did see tray ceilings and, granite countertops and, maybe upgrades in flooring and things like that. Is the model, like, are all of the units like that? Or do you have some that are not granite countertops and not,
That is standard.
that is standard? Okay,
9-foot ceilings, granite countertops, the flooring, LTV flooring, light fixtures, everything is standard.
and do you anticipate that the price of these 2-bedroom units will be $307,000 each.
By the time we get there, I don't know what they will be, because that'll probably be a couple of years out.
But I mean, like if they were built tomorrow,
Yes, probably in that range, maybe 3.7, 3.10. This is an expensive piece of property development because we've got to bring that water under 54.
no, I know, but, and you have homes selling in that price range in Gibsonville. Homes are selling in that price range in Gibsonville?
How are your sales? We haven't sold anything yet.
Okay. But you sold those like in Old Fields and,
Sold Old Fields, we sold about 155 down in Swetsonville. We have a development in Burlington off of Isley Square, Isley Street. Have one in Jamestown.
and they look similar to this and 2-bedroom and they're selling in that price range.
That floor plan is tried and true.
Okay. Aaron, do you want to click on it for the rest? I've seen it, but some of the council members may not have seen what it looks like. And I noticed you had some handicap bathrooms in there. With just a small lip. Of it's like a walk-in shower. Is that part of your gearing towards this particular age? Is that,
We're finding that a lot of older single people buy these couples. But there again, it is not, anybody can buy.
there's
them,
one right
but
there. You
they're
see
not-
the shower on the right?
Like the single level especially.
And you said the one in Gibsonville also has 6 units together?
I don't recall the site plan. I know we've got 4 units, maybe a 5 unit in there. I don't know whether we have a 6 or not.
Oh.
You have a 6 or?
He's saying the Burlington
Bur-
site
Bur-
has a
Burlington
6,
has a 6.
Isley Road.
And when would you be looking to start construction?
Got to engineer the site. First of all, we would probably be lucky to start vertical construction, I'm guessing maybe in 2025 sometimes. If you're lucky. My engineer just told me if we're lucky, maybe 2006.
You have any questions, Bonnie?
No, ma'am.
You have any questions?
No.
Have any questions, Joey?
No, ma'am.
Questions? I think, the concerns that I've heard from the residents have been about buffering, and keeping existing, trees in that 20-foot buffer. We always encourage developers to try to, not only just for runoff purposes, but just, and as a neighborly type thing to try to keep, I don't know how many trees are there in that 20-foot buffer, but to try to obviously keep as many as you can, in order to, satisfy both the neighbors and also not have so much runoff from the cutting down of large trees in that area. There'll be a lot of trees that'll be removed, obviously, from the center of the property. But I think most people seem to be mostly concerned with the buffers and how they, and you're always just gonna have this problem when you're trying to develop in an area that already has development, obviously. And they're used, all of those homes have very, very large lots. So, is there any other conditions that the council would like for me to consider in a motion?
The one about the flooding, the 100-year flooding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the fencing around the pond.
That's
Okay,
fine.
okay. Okay,
Are we for the fencing around the pond? Is that what you're saying?
yes,
I mean, they're showing a
Yes, we will.
retaining wall
We will.
there. Would you want a fence also?
I'm sorry.
They show a retaining wall around it. Would you want a retaining wall or a fence? Or both?
I mean, that castle block, when I see those retaining walls, seem to be fairly nice, but I mean, I'm glad to hear from what you guys are proposing.
The retaining wall would be there as a portion of only the grading as necessary.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a fencing option. It would, if the fence is required, the fence is required. The retaining wall would be there as a requirement of the grading to increase the volume of the pond if need be to meet the condition that Josh has placed.
Okay,
Okay,
So the fence and the retaining wall, two different items.
okay.
okay. And Josh, what was your concern about the fence?
If you build a fence, if you build a fence, then your pond is no longer a part of your site. And it's seen like that from a maintenance perspective. A lot of times they get overgrown. Also, my personal opinion is as a child, I love to climb a fence. And that was a great idea. As an adult, I have less of a desire to climb a fence. And the primary thing we're trying to do with the fence around the pond is to keep kids out of it. And I'm yet to see a fence that kept a kid out of a pond, but I've seen a fence that made it a pain in the ass to get into a pond if I needed to go into the pond in order to do something about the fact that the kid was already in the pond. So that's my personal opinion. That's,
Those are what, typically 4 foot at most?
yeah, because if you build it higher than that, then it becomes, there are,
Eyesore.
eyesore security issues with, you can't see in and all kinds of things like that. So usually they're 4 foot chain link, black vinyl chain link fence. That's the typical.
I wouldn't, that's not what I envisioned was a chain link fence, but I see your point, but I think something more of like a metal fence that's, I'm sorry, I'm not suggesting a wrought iron fence, but that's like brings kind of an image maybe to mind of what I'm trying to say, but more of like a
black picket.
yeah, like a, how wrought iron fences have the set,
So-
that, but a metal fence, I guess.
So we've given
Something that's
people.
more decorative.
So we've given people options as far as here are approved, in other places, we've given people options of here are approved types of fences here, here are fences that are not going to be approved. Over time, due to materials, due to cost as well, we've approved the vinyl coated black fencing. And in reality, it looks just as good because it doesn't require any maintenance and it's in place. And if it's a problem, you can fix it easily. And, so I haven't seen any problem with them. I'm also not really the aesthetic guy, but I do think that they work fine. So.
Yes, sir.
This is anecdotal and it goes back a long way, probably 35 years ago, when I was involved in development in High Point off of, can't think of the name of the road now. They required us to put a fence. We did. A couple of kids got over in there. We almost lost the light. Then they required us to take the fence down. If you want a fence, we'll put the fence up. But I think we need to really think about what we're doing before we just say, put a fence up. I think maybe we've got some options of what to put there, but, it was not a good situation, and we literally almost lost someone because we had a requirement to put a fence up.
And anecdotally, that I haven't had that issue, but that's the concern that I have is there's a positive, there's a negative. It's cost benefit
How did
and
the
you
fence-
don't need one and then you do need one.
In that situation, the kid climbed the fence, right?
Climbed the fence.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. Kids don't mind common fences. I loved common fences when I was a kid. I don't like common fences as an adult.
But not
Yeah.
having a fence, I mean,
Not having not having a fence in some places, you could see it as a liability. You could also see it as a benefit. It is, there's a reason that in our standards for Graham, we do not require one. But if someone wants to put one up, we certainly encourage and we don't have a problem with it. So that's the reason that we don't, as a matter of our standards, have a position on on it. There are other places that do. So, and I'll give you the example, and the reason that Amanda referenced that we did was because the city of Mebane requires a fence. And that is based upon, that was the prevailing opinion at the time. So,
Jennifer, in our subdivision, we have 2 ponds and they were built without fences.
I'm not in aesthetically and safety wise. I don't think there's a lot of benefit safety wise, and aesthetically, I think it would hurt the entrance to that property to put a fence up.
Especially with it being out on the main
With it
road.
being,
Yeah.
if you don't put a fence, it can be mowed and maintained and be aesthetically pleasing for years to come. If you put a fence, it's gonna get overgrown and be
And they're-
nasty.
And then they're talking the depth is only 3 to 4 feet.
You can drown in a 5-gallon bucket, so.
Yeah. I know.
I mean,
But
So, but what I'm saying is, that's it's irrelevant.
one of those parents having responsibility and teaching.
Just
the
it's a
kids.
responsibility issue.
well, they'll be on HOA, is that right?
Yeah, that's what they said.
And so what is it why does Mebane require the fence?
because in review, in basically what I just went through, Daryl Russell and Charles Bateman thought that you needed one. I mean, their opinion on that was that they were more concerned about that having a fence to prevent people from getting, Daryl being the long-term city of Mebane engineer and Charles being the long-term city attorney. Thanks. And that was their opinion. And so it's written in their ordinance that requires a fence. So.
And I think with this being kind of more targeted to an aging demographic. I mean, you can have kids in there because it's open to anybody, but if it was
How deep,
starter home type of thing, when there was gonna be younger kids, a lot of younger kids there, I'd say the fence would be more relevant, but personally,
I guess, what's the topography of what it's gonna look like? Is it just gonna be like kind of level and then 4 or 5 feet down and then go up? Or is it gonna be, because I see some of these things and they look dangerous. I mean, I've been to some subdivisions and those retention ponds are dangerous. I mean, I guess I just sense when I see a fence, it means I shouldn't go there. And I understand kids do, but whether you have a fence there or whether you don't have a fence there, at least you didn't even give a warning that maybe this isn't a place that you should be going to. I went to one and I mean, I thought, if a kid falls off that retention wall, they're probably not gonna make it. I mean, I think we were in Mebane actually looking at a subdivision there.
So
Um,
what you're gonna have is you're gonna have a 3-to-1 slope, which is a standard slope on the side of a road, okay?
Okay.
Hey, you have a 3-to-1 slope. It's gonna go down to a 6-to-1 slope, which is pretty flat, which is that shelf that I was talking about earlier. And then it's gonna be steeper below that, which is gonna be below the water level. In this case, the taller side of the pond, I believe, is gonna be on the back side away from the road. So the closer side, the less steep side is gonna be on the side that's closest to the road. That's why I was. Yeah. So ultimately, this is whether, how y'all wanna view this. I'm
Can
kind
you
of the
show
one.
Where the pond's gonna be? Yeah. You're not concerned about that being in their backyard?
Aaron, what is the new subdivision that was approved out there on Lacey Holt, that they're working on now?
That's Lacey Farms.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got one retention pond in front of their.
Elevate's got a retention pond.
And some of them have fences and some of them do not.
It all depends upon the
Topography.
the height of I think instead of demanding a fence, if it turns out the retaining wall is of a height that warrants a fence, we would hope you would put one up. Versus
Yeah, that's right.
just saying you need to put a fence up.
Yeah, fall protection,
Mhm.
Josh will take a look at that.
Yeah. With the wall, I mean, if there's a wall required, then yes, that would be something that's easily done.
Because if they don't put up a fence and it's hot, and if somebody falls off,
Mhm.
it's on them.
Mhm.
We're not taking steps to ensure that someone does not fall off the retention wall. If it's that high.
Bob, what do you think?
I don't know, I think into the development to see, what is needed. I'd like to think that they get to the point, that once they get into the development and the retaining wall, then from the configuration, how they play a plan, they would indeed put a fence. Something that would, help prevent, some accidents, mostly the small children. I pretty much depend upon the developer, what I would say.
Does the city, if I could ask Madam Mayor, does the city have any potential liability with or without a fence?
I don't think so. I think it's on the developer.
I will say that, when you have a pool or any body of water, and you are insuring property, they absolutely want you to have a fence.
Yeah.
So, I'm inclined to require the fence. I may not have the votes to be able to do that. And then if they don't think that they need the fence, that they could come back to council and request that change. But,
Why not go the other way? If it requires a fence, they can come back and approach, or again, we cannot try to develop standards or requirements with a what if. As a developer, you should take responsibility of, you've got a retaining wall of sufficient height. If somebody falls off or a car goes over it, there's going to be significant damage. It's going to come back on you for not taking steps. I just don't feel that we as a government, as a city government, should begin dictating where individuals have to step up and take responsibility. And we as a council can't be trying to establish norms, as don't climb the fence. You know, we've got enough rules and regulations. We need to put some of the onus back on the developers and on the owners who live there. Versus we as a community, as the city government dictating responsibilities that fall upon the owner of the property and the developer.
Bob, does the city of Burlington require fences around retention ponds?
I would have to check with our planning folks. I'm not certain right now, so.
No, I think they do.
No, Burlington does not require fences around ponds so far, unless that has changed in the last 2 years, but I'm pretty certain that they don't.
So
There are places that because as a company, we've done private development in Burlington. Some of those ponds have fences around them, some of them don't. So
I know there's some that's not.
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so we do work all across the state and, some places require a fence and some places don't. I would say that if I had to guess, most places don't require the fence and a few do require the fence. That's probably the prevailing notion. Of course, the developer here is willing to do whatever the council wishes, but I would say most of the ordinances don't require a fence. A few do.
So why don't we do this? Aaron, is it possible for us to put as a condition that, once I guess the site plan is done, if the, if a retention wall, a wall needs to be done there and our city engineer believes that a fence is necessary, can we make that a condition?
Yes, as long as the applicant is willing to accept that condition, we can move forward with that.
Because he's got a license and if anybody wants to do anything, I'm gonna defer to, well, this is what our city engineer said to do, and by all means, go after him.
You gotta have the water runoff, when you do a great big area like that, you just.
I mean,
I tell you
but the
what,
city
guys, if you're
inspectors,
gonna ask questions, you gotta come up here so we can get it recorded.
but our city inspector basically has to sign off that the development is ready for occupancy, correct?
I mean, our city inspector sits on the board for, when they review the plans and the site plans and.
But they're
so-
gonna go out and inspect as they're building, correct?
Yeah. I mean, you
Okay.
have both an engineer from the developer and then you have a city engineer. And both of them can talk it out and decide whether the fence is necessary based on the topography and whether.
Absolutely. I just don't feel we should be dictating that there will be a fence versus saying, as they're building, as they're developing that property, if they find that that retention wall for that pond needs a fence, then they should, take responsibility to say, hey, tell the developer, we need to put a fence on this side of the
Well, that-
retaining wall because it's so high that if somebody goes over it,
Well, that fall hazard will be in be in a code anyway for minimum height for fall. Am I not correct on that? Is that correct, Josh? Yeah, I mean, if the retaining wall's over a certain height, it's gonna have to have a fence by code regardless.
so it's there.
Yeah.
I just don't feel that we should put a condition, you will put a fence around the retaining wall. I mean, the pond.
Well, I see what you're,
versus it needs to, an assessment needs to be made when at that point, the retaining wall is built for the pond. And if it says it exceeds the height, you need a fence. They put in a fence.
right. Okay. So I'll make a motion, to approve the rezoning of
You haven't.
oh, sorry, motion to close the public hearing.
A second.
All approved. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion to close the public hearing was made. I move to approve the rezoning of 7.8 acres located off Sunset Drive from R7 high-density residential and R18 low-density residential to conditional rezoning residential to construct at least 40, to construct a maximum of 42 townhomes, and that it is consistent with the Graham 2020-35 comprehensive plan, and the property would be consistent with the suburban residential principal uses and further policy 5.1.1 housing variety, policy 5.2.1 diverse neighbors, and future land use plan for this area with the following conditions recommended by the planning board, being the site plan includes the distance between the buildings to allow a minimum of 20 feet separation between the buildings. That number 2, the landscape buffer for the lot line abutting parcel number 147609 must be changed from type D to type C. And I believe that surrounding the entire subdivision, with the exception of the open space where the Duke Energy easement is, that the landscaping buffer would be type C. Is that correct, Aaron?
Type B.
What else is not type C?
We have that one adjacency to commercial property that's a type D. Since it's already commercial, it's more intense than us.
Where's that at?
It's behind that 4-unit row, on the left-hand side of the paper. Keep going, Aaron. Lower. There you go. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Everything else with the exception of the Duke Energy easement and the property line adjacent to the commercial property behind Road 1. Water and sewer to be public. Sidewalks must be installed along the full frontage of Sunset Drive. No landscaping buffer is required along the Duke Power easement side of the property. That the runoff will meet the pre-development rate for the 100-year storm event. And that the buffer, the 20-foot buffer will not be clear cut and replanted, but rather the developer will save the existing trees that are in that 20-foot buffer and use the existing topography. No?
Sorry. We would have to leave that. We'll endeavor to. We would like to, but without it being engineered yet and without knowing where our cut and slopes are, we wouldn't be able to know that we can absolutely do that.
Where to leave them where possible.
That's right. We could do that.
Good versus will.
That the developer will endeavor to keep the existing tree in the 20-foot area in as much as possible and as approved by our city engineer. And that the city engineer will determine and work with the developer's engineer to determine whether a fence is required along the retention pond, and whether the retention wall is also required as a result of the topography of the property.
I second your motion, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. You're welcome. New business, Sterigenics,
No.
Gotta
Back
do the
to the
annexation.
sorry. A public hearing's been scheduled to consider an annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits to the city of Graham for a tract of land totaling 7.8 acres located off Sunset Drive. This is a public hearing. If anybody's here to speak about the proposed annexation. Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion to close the public hearing on the annexation passes. I need a motion to approve or deny the annexation ordinance.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve that we approve the annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits to the city of Graham for a tract of land totaling 7.8 acres located off Sunset Drive.
Do I hear a second?
I
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Sorry? Sorry. Sterigenics, new business. City council will consider waiving the water and sewer development fees for Sterigenics in exchange for the installation of a 1,600 linear foot, 8-inch ductile iron pipe connecting to the existing 12-inch main alongside Jimmy Kerr Road and to connect to the existing 6-inch main along Bakatosh Lane to provide a backfeed supply to the city of Graham water system. So I'll recognize City Manager Aaron Holland.
Raise. I think I'm gonna go back.
Sorry. Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland. I didn't even know what I said. I had 3 hours of sleep. I was at a fire until 3:30 in the morning.
There's no problem. Thank you, Mayor. Just to touch on some of what you already mentioned, Sterigenics is currently constructing a new 70,000 square foot facility at their location off Bakatosh Lane. As noted in the letter submitted by the company, the concern for lack of sufficient water supply and pressure to accommodate their fire suppression needs has prompted them to install a new 8-inch water supply to the facility to address this issue. The estimated water and sewer development fee totals approximately $49,000. In lieu of doing so, there is a proposal to request a waiver of that development fee, and they would then put in the installation of that 1,600 linear foot ductile iron, 8-inch ductile iron line. The city staff highly recommends this request because the cost of upgrading this line is greatly offset by the company performing the work versus the city having to put it in themselves. And this would be a tremendous savings to our citizens in the long run. I would gladly answer any questions you have as well. I know we have representatives from Sterigenics here to speak on this if you have any questions for them.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, point of clarification. Aaron, did you say seven?
Mr. Boning, please step up to the mic, yeah.
Aaron, did you say 70,000 square foot?
I believe it's 70,000 square foot. 70,000.
70,000.
That's right.
70.
Madam Mayor,
70. Yep.
Madam Mayor, I'm making a motion that we approve the waiver of the water and sewer fees for this project.
Second.
Aaron, do you have anything else to say? So the waiver of the fees of 49,000, just for clarification, the amount that it's going to cost to put in this line is significantly more than that.
Probably close to $500,000.
Yeah. So, we greatly appreciate the people from Sterigenics being here. Was there anything that you'd like to say? Are you good?
Madam Mayor, Council, thanks for letting us or giving us the opportunity to speak up. We're happy to be a part of City of Graham. We actually have an operating facility right next to this new development. I believe it's been in operation since late eighties. We're currently building a new facility, which will be a state-of-the-art, highly automated. Construction is currently ongoing, and so we're happy to extend the infrastructure and support the future development of the city of Graham. We believe we also reviewed the design with Josh, and we will be connecting the new line with the existing 6-inch line, which currently goes along Balaktash Road. And we believe this connection along with the new line will greatly improve the infrastructure in the area, supporting the existing business, opens up the area for the future development, and helps the city of Graham. So we appreciate you reviewing our request, and we'll be happy if you can approve it.
I think your neighbors will be very happy. I know the lady that owns Valtree has complained to me numerous times about the lines there and the capacity that she has in order that she needs. And so being able to improve that, I think would be very good. So there's a motion on the floor. Thank you for being here
Thank you.
tonight. A motion on the floor and a second. All in favor to approve waiving of the fees in exchange and in lieu to have that line put in by Sterigenics, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Mr. Westbrook, if you could come forward.
Yes, man. Keith Westbrook, 604 Chalkwater Court in Graham. Ma'am, I wanted to talk to y'all about changing the public meeting time from 8 o'clock tonight, which is pretty good, to having it where we have it before. The comment was made in the last meeting that you wanted to hear more from the public. But everything I hear from the public is I never have the opportunity during a meeting, and I asked why that is. And they says, because I'm not going to wait till 10, 11 o'clock at night. So I'm asking you if there's any, we could have any consideration to change the public comment period from the end of the meeting to after the invocation, whatever, you know, where you see fit, where it better fit, I think, where more people could talk. And if you do, I will try to get some more people in here.
Well, sometimes, I mean, we definitely want to hear from people. And so we encourage people to email us, call us, text us, whatever they need to do to be able to let us know. But sometimes, I mean, our agenda tonight was 94 pages long. So we're here in a short amount of time to try to get through you know, the city's business. And if you had, you know, 20 people before that city business is even addressed, you know, talking about, I don't know, something that's not on the agenda. Number one, we have a rule that says that we can't make a decision about something that's not on the agenda that hasn't been advertised publicly. So if you come, it's always typically been at the end of the meeting in order to be able to have it come and be on the agenda, and you can be further up on the list to be addressed at the next meeting. So like if you bring up something now and it's an agenda item, then we would put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
So what you're saying, and in essence, which I asked about, was could we have something put on the agenda about it maybe for next, and maybe to take into consideration? And
No, I'm talking about a specific issue. I mean, you could, if we're here to try to do city business and you even had like 5 people that spoke before the meeting, I mean, it could easily be, you know, our goal of the meeting, it is a public meeting, but it's to get through the agenda so that we can move on. And then if someone wants to speak at the end about a particular item or have the council make a decision about something, then they can certainly do that at the end of the meeting. And then if it's something that we need to consider, it will be on the agenda. It won't be at the end of the meeting. At the next council meeting, it'll be on the agenda. But I mean, I think that's been that way for years and years and years.
But the problem I think what people have always told me in the past about that is they can't get nothing on the agenda. So that is, and I don't understand how that works. I asked Renee, and how do you, does a person or someone get something put on the agenda that they may want to talk about and have 8 or 10 other people come and they want to talk about an item?
Oh, absolutely. You can contact the city clerk and she's happy
So she
to.
would, I mean, within reason. I ain't gonna come up here with something stupid, but there's a lot of things people talk to me about, and if they're concerned, I feel like they should be able to talk, but then they've told me in the past, they're not gonna come and sit and wait till 10 o'clock at night.
Well,
So,
Mr. Westbrook, what you got to consider is it is not our intention to have meetings that go more than a couple hours.
I understand.
And early on, until we got our feet underneath us, yes, some of our meetings went long. But as you can see now, it's 8 o'clock,
All right,
reasonable 2-hour meeting. And so public comment is great, and the public comment time is for things that are not, hey, a question about Arts Around the Square or Christmas parade, something.
like.
But it's
one of the
really a
other
time
things that I
for
wrote
you
on
as a
here
citizen to come
Where,
and
like,
express what we're doing good or what we're doing bad. You've talked about the sidewalk.
questions,
going to
like
grant-
questions and the mayor, that's a good point right there, because that's one of my pet things is every time we build a housing development or a business, we build a sidewalk in front of it, and where's it go to? Nowheres. You got a little short sidewalk, you go down a half a mile, you got another business, guess what we do? Sometime we gotta connect these sidewalks.
Well, just like you're interested in having a sidewalk going to the high school.
You
to
know what,
build that
I'll tell you what a
sidewalk-
person told, 86-year-old woman told me that lives over there. And she's lived there all of her life, and I tell you what she told me,
What'd she say?
it's never gonna happen. She says, you're wasting your time. That's what she told me, so. Now, the last thing I was told about that was, you mentioned 1.1 something million grant,
Yeah,
correct? DOT grant? But if you go ask the DOT or if you ask city staff, a timeline, there is none because there's no priority on it.
well,
So what does that mean to the people that want the sidewalk? You see what I'm saying, Mr. Chip?
I hear you.
Okay.
Mr. Robertson and I have talked about it. There is a solution, but it requires DOT allowing us to take,
Yeah, my
that
four minutes
road,
is up, I know.
and
Good.
take one of the lanes and make it into a pedestrian walkway versus to build the sidewalk,
I see
we'd
too
have to
many
acquire
incidences over
land.
there with people walking down the highway, and that's a pretty busy highway,
Yeah,
especially in the mornings. And logging trucks, everything else. I mean, it's just to me, I can tell you exactly what it is. It's an accident waiting to happen. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for being here. Any staff comments? Josh, you got anything? You got anything, Bob? Okay, Aaron? Renee? Joey?
I mean, I'd like to say thank you to all the, obviously the fire department, but all the unsung heroes that came out to help, obviously the fire department's everybody thinks fire department, but there's so many other people on staff that are involved in making that a much safer, much better situation. So I'd like to say thanks to everyone.
Ricky?
I echo what Joey said about our fire department and police department. Also want to thank the residents who came out and voted for me.
Congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem. Bobby?
I think we need to do a better job of educating our citizens that when we're talking about developments, they need to attend the planning board when those developments are initially proposed, because that's where you make your voices heard. when it gets here to the city council, you know, in many ways, the train is starting to roll. And if they want to influence a developer, you got to talk to them at the planning board, because
Well,
that's,
and even a step above that, when they send out that letter for contact and they have their public meeting, that's a huge time. Yeah, nobody came to their public meeting on this,
Yeah.
this one here.
but that's it. That's one of the,
They
you know,
could
the
address-
education process.
Yeah, they could have addressed all that buffer and everything with the developer prior to it even going to planning board.
But that was one of the
There was someone that
conversation.
complained to my husband about this, but they didn't come to the meeting, so.
I mean, I talked to a young couple who they've attended city council meetings and they had not attended a planning board meeting. I said, that's where you, if you want to influence the developer, you gotta get them early. And they said, oh, yeah. And I just, it's, you know, it's one of those little info blurb out there that if you're interested in the community, then, and something's being proposed, you need to attend, you know, the public hearings and especially go to the planning board. Because again, bringing it here,
Can I tell you something about, you talk about the planning board, I agree 100% with you, but a lot of people don't know that they can go to the planning board.
well, that's why I'm saying we need to educate the public that you can go to any of the commission meetings. But the
Do
planning
they,
board.
They
is-
get a letter saying when the planning board meeting is, right?
We had some planning board meetings that have more attendance than the city council. So
Yeah.
I think it's more so there are some individuals who feel the final votes with council, so they hold they reserve it until then. I do agree that the influence starts with planning board because there are recommendations that can be made at the planning board level and can be vetted and sort of ran through. By the time you get to council, it could be a much polished product because the developers had time to look into it or staff had time to sort of get some information for council. So I do agree that the importance of the planning board certainly is there. But we do have some individuals who choose not to come to planning board because they feel that vote doesn't carry the weight, obviously, that the finite vote that council does.
Yeah, but I think, again, they missed the point of
We
influence the planning board ahead of time while they're there,
I don't disagree at all.
you know, so where the planning board could say, developer, go home, address this, and come back.
Just as a matter of clarification though, Mayor, I don't believe that residents are advised of planning board meetings specifically. In other words, if you, a rezoning, the ones you had tonight or anything, the notification is with respect to council, not planning board, if I'm not mistaken.
I think planning boards are announced that they can
There's a
attend,
general announcement. They have a regular schedule, regular meeting schedule, just
but I
as
think
y'all
they
do.
put agenda
But-
out there, doesn't
But
it?
in terms of specific notification to the, people within whatever the rule is, how many feet of a project, I believe that is only at the city council level.
I didn't think so. I thought they got, a planning board notice, a letter in the mail saying this property is adjacent to your property and that, it's being considered by the planning board.
I could be wrong, Mayor, but I don't think so.
Is the agenda posted
Yes,
for the planning board?
Supposed to be.
it is.
I think that's what, it's like, hey, look at the agenda. If it's something of interest, show up. I mean, the notification, if it impacts you directly, that's fine, but I'm talking about our citizens in
Well,
general.
I think we need to go above and beyond in certain circumstances, like where DOT is doing something to a road. They don't, as far as I know, they don't have to, necessarily come to council to get approval or anything. They just do their own thing. And so I think when that starts affecting people's properties and we know about it because they've let us know, I think there's an expectation from the citizens that we let them know hey, this project is happening, there's gonna be a new road going through there, there's gonna be, utilities coming through, whatever.
Yeah, but I think when it comes to developments,
Yeah.
that's where citizens, even though it doesn't directly impact them because
Mhm.
their property's not adjacent to that, what's being proposed. But to hear, hey, something, a large development's coming. Yeah,
Aaron, are they notified for planning board? One other thing that I would like to say is that, you know,
maybe we'll give Mr. Boney.
if there's the fiber optic people were digging today and they dug through a water line or whatever and caused water for Broad Acres to be cut off. I'd like for us to be able to post something about that on the Facebook so people have a reasonable expectation to know, well, I can go to the Facebook page for the city of Graham and I'll know about that ETA is to have that water back on by 6:30. You know, that there's road closures or whatever. Is there a way for us, do we have the staff time to be able to post anything like that?
So a lot of those functions would come with someone who serves in a PIO type role or community outreach coordinator or something like that. I would say at present with our lean staffing levels, we really don't have the bandwidth to have anyone make sort of those dedicated posts.
Well, people were concerned about the fire and they wanted, you know, somebody to be posting. I mean, how do you let the people know that we're evacuated, you know, that the shelter's open, that the rec center's open for people that are displaced?
So I believe in that instance, the evacuation was request, not order, but request was coming from people on site going door to door saying, hey, we've got this over here. We're worried about a potential collapse and the impact it may have on your property, your residents. We're recommending you evacuate. It's not mandatory. So just going door to door.
Okay.
Council would like to explore funding a position of that nature. That's something we can certainly look at, but I would say at present, our staffing levels just don't have the additional bandwidth to absorb those duties.
Well, could the managers of those different departments have someone on their team do that? I mean, if you split up their duties, maybe it wouldn't be that hard. Maybe you wouldn't need to necessarily have just one person. I'd hate to have one person that's all it doesn't seem like it's enough for even a part-time position, but
yeah, I
like
would say
when the police kind of, you know, will post things if there's like a alert for somebody at large or whatever, or if there's some major, you know, situation or whatever, or there's somebody that's escaped or things like that. I think the police department does a pretty good job of alerting the public about certain things. And then, but like, you know, when we don't have water and stuff, I mean, is there maybe somebody on Tanya's staff that could send something to Renee to post? Because Renee wouldn't necessarily know that, but maybe they could let her know.
yeah, I would say with the PD, given that they're our largest department, both in dollars and personnel, they would have the most bandwidth, you know, as they do currently, to be able to push a lot of those notifications out. The majority of the instances that I can think of, and even some that you have named, for public works or public utilities, are the departments where we can't even get the jobs filled. You know, public utilities, for example, has been running on one crew for distribution, I would say for at least a year or more. So half of their distribution crew is vacant. We're having difficulty getting people in, or if we do get them in, they might last a day, and then day 2 or 3, we don't see them anymore. So I agree that we could certainly improve our outreach efforts in that. Unfortunately, a lot of the areas where we have
those needs for notifications are the areas where we're the most severely understaffed, not because of funding, but because of being able to get people to fill those jobs. With the new salary study, would those positions be increased in order to be able to attract people to fill those positions? Yes, there is a potential there for those to be increased. Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right, so, I echo, sorry, go ahead.
Your turn.
Okay. I just kind of want to piggyback on what Joey said about the fire department. I think they did a fabulous job with the fire over there on Parker, and I went by before the meeting to talk to some of them, but there weren't very many of them around, just to thank them for what they did. And so I wanted to piggyback on that, and then piggyback on Ricky's also, and just say thanks to all the voters who turned out to vote. Really appreciate it. Really do. I say, echo the same sentiments. I think that the firemen were at times I was watching large pieces of roofing material fly through the air, and the fact that we didn't have any of those items land on houses, we were extremely lucky. But when walls start collapsing under fire trucks on ladders and firemen that are up on the ladder, it's pretty scary sight to watch. And I certainly appreciate all of the different paid firemen and volunteer firemen that responded from not just Graham, but all across the county. And I think even Hillsborough responded. So greatly appreciate what they've done, and hopefully we'll be able to do something to encourage some redevelopment over there on that property. I had in fact called literally about that property the day before the fire. It's very frustrating for us. I think that we've trying to do what we can within the legal within our legal remedies to be able to do something about the property, but I hope nobody was in there. Don't know that we'll ever know if somebody was in there, but I certainly hope and pray that that's not the case. Anyways, appreciate Brian and his him coming out at 2:00 in the morning and helping. There was a little girl and another lady. She had a 1-month-old and 1-year-old there at the rec center. Another lady there that had 2 animals. But it was really, really smoky and not really a good place. And the one lady I think had some breathing, concerns about, breathing in the air and stuff over there. And certainly you don't want little babies breathing and all that stuff. So no telling what was in that meal, but greatly appreciate everybody working really hard to make sure everybody stayed safe. So thank you so much. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No, got a closed session.
Sorry. Man, I'm ready to go. No. City Council will consider going into closed session pursuant to the terms of North Carolina General Statutes 143-318-11A3 to consult with our attorneys employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged regarding Cone Commercial Real Estate Investment, LLC versus City of Graham, Alamance County Court Case 23 CBS 1909.
So we move.
So, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I make the motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor, do you happen to have a guesstimate of time Y'all might,
Not long, I hope. We hope maybe.
8 minutes.
more importantly,
Eight
Bob, you
minutes.
have a guest.
Okay, Bobby.
8 minutes.
About 8 minutes, but
Cause that's my time.
I
8
figured,
minutes.
I figured that.
Bobby's got jokes.
Yeah, Bobby's got jokes. He's got game tonight. Okay, go ahead. I'm going slowly. Sorry, Ricky. I'm just backing in there, brother. Okay. Let me just- Here. Bobby. Oh, thank you very much.
As an adult, that wasn't fair. Is that like, well, I understood your point. I just question, the city with liability, if it didn't require, and there were actually a death, that not only will they come after the developer, he's got pretty big pockets, but come after the city, which has a.
So I think it's more likely that you would require one that it would not be maintained properly and that it would fall back on the city that you didn't require them to maintain it, even though you require them to have it. I think that's more likely that you would, that would be the thing. Yeah, I just have to. But that's in my head, that's the scenario that I can see. Also. Charles and Daryl, who I love, and I respect both of them immensely. It was a hell of a here. I got you. You got it, Brian?
I think we got mine.
Here, I got mine, okay. Yeah. They were hell bent that you had to have it, needed it, and it was very important. And I did my best to not disagree with them because usually there was a reason that they thought that way. So but my opinion is that it's a cost benefit thing, and
Let me duck here.
yes, sir.
And you're here, I'll talk when we get back. Don't wait.
I won't be here.
All
See you,
right,
Tom.
fine, thanks. Man, it really should depend on the totality of it. I mean, like,
I don't know. Maybe in defense. Maybe you don't.
but I mean, let's be honest. The guy's building $42,300,000 townhome. Do you think that he's not gonna put up a $1,500?
Oh, he doesn't care about the cost. Like, he doesn't care about the cost at all. He just, but my thing is,
It's so much harder to maintain.
that's the thing.
It's like ass during the summertime when all the shit grows up.
It grows up.
It's gonna be important for us to get in there.
And see, and the thing is, like, once you see, what I see is so that they can maintain it, they spray Roundup all the way around the outside of it. So then it's dead all around it. And then then you end up with holes. You're right. And Charles and Daryl are right. Like, there's a reason.
They spray Roundup is water, and then
There's a reason to have it. There's a reason not to have it. It's,
Yeah,
as he just said, it's like, guy's building $300,000 townhome. He's gonna put the damn fence up if he thinks he wants to sue. I mean, but.
I would put this up.
Right. I mean, yeah. If I was a property owner, I'd put that.
How amazing this guy's pretty rodeo.
Dude, Ed's been doing this for a long time. He's done them everywhere. And
He's done them long enough to have examples. Probably so. He gave one.
he gave one. That's correct. That's correct.
You could probably
That's
do another.
That's correct.
A different topic. Did I understand you to say when they were talking about the steroid cycles, steroid that, it would be gonna cost the city $500,000? Really?
Yeah, in the agenda packet, I got a memo in the agenda packet, I think, and their letter is in the agenda packet, and they gave us the price, and that's probably accurate, so we're putting in.
49,000 of a $500,000. That's pretty.
So this is the one that they asked us in January, well, can't you forgive our fees? I said, yeah, absolutely, you have to go to council and ask. I cannot forgive your fees, you can go to council and ask them. I would highly recommend that they forgive your fees. And they came back in September, they came back in September, and like, yeah, you're gonna give us those fees, we don't have to pay those fees, right? When you go to council.
You happen to know, he said that this is expansion, so it's a new build and not anything closing down about the old building.
That's correct.
Is this one gonna have a smokestack also? Do you have any idea?
So Sterigenics doesn't have the smokestack. Stericycle has the smokestack.
They relate.
I don't think so. They are very adamant that we are not related.
Well, except when I asked him a question about, like, say, it's the back one you're going to remain open, he said, yes.
So he's not thinking that. He's thinking that, you know, so Stericycle's at the end of the road, where the road turns to shit, right? Okay. Beside it is an existing Sterigenics facility. And then they're building on the corner.
All right.
So they already have one building.
Okay, so when I
He's
said
thinking that.
Okay, he's not thinking it's smokestack. He's thinking theirs. I got you. Yeah.
I
And that is
think,
right. That is the right knowledge right there.
yeah, and I think what they do, what this facility is gonna do is, I think they're like sterilizing medical equipment to send back to doctor's offices and things. It's not the same, nothing like Stericycle with their incinerator and whatever, so, but we've asked that question a couple times in a couple of different ways, because mostly because we're curious, but also because we want to know if we're gonna get blindsided by somebody. And we've gotten the same answer over and over again, is no, we are not the same company, we don't have anything to do with them, we just have to be, we just have similar names, happen to be on the same road, and it's like, okay, and like, we can't, there's nothing that ties the two together, but you know, ultimately, I don't think it matters from a city perspective, but I would know.
It's very high profile. Right out there.
Very high profile.
Today, over there, somebody's story. Gonna be quite.
It's gonna, and I think that's the height. I don't think it goes any higher than that, but that's their little facility, that's their like main whatever thing. So, which they were adamant that they had, you know, when they got started, that they had to get started on that and they would come back with the water line. Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's a whole lot of steel, so I imagine, yeah. Yeah.
Well, if this guy's not gonna deal with these townhomes.
Well, he won't, yeah, it'll be, he won't get his plans approved until sometime middle of next year, would be my guess. And then he's looking at probably 12 to 18 months of construction, so
It could really be a $400,000.
it could be, it absolutely could be. Which is
With a
amazing.
12% interest rate. It's so hard to imagine, but fact, he said at the planning board, 300,000. So the prices they put up there for Gibsonville ones are what we say, below the others.
That's an amazing number.
Yeah.
I can't
But it's
imagine.
nice. I mean,
It's nice.
I just
It's
bought,
nice.
I just built a house and it was $301,000.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
insane.
Mhm.
Yeah. So. Single family? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I guess. 4 bedroom, 2 bath.
yeah, it's your standard house. I mean, that's a standard that's a standard house. This absolutely 300,000. Probably on the low end.
Yeah.
Like,
It was a modular. I mean, we got, so
Well, yeah.
I got killed, man, because when we started this whole thing, it was like 272.
yeah,
And then.
by the time you actually got to do it,
You know, so.
oh yeah, I mean, I know people who have been approved at this rate, then they built the house, and then the appraiser wasn't up to date. The appraiser comes out and says, no, it's only worth this, and it's like,
So
dude, okay, it's worth a hell of a lot more than that, because I just paid somebody to build it for more than that.
So we got locked in, pre-approved at 3.25, planning board. They suspended their program while all this was going on. They suspended their construction loan program, right? So we, when it was all said and done, it was 6 5/8, that's what we're in now. So double the interest rate, pretty much. So.
See, I built mine in the opposite situation. I built mine in 2000, we closed in November of 2007. Right, so our initial, you know, we wanted to get locked in on our rate, which was 5 3/4. When we closed, we were closed 5 1/4. A month later, we refinanced for 4.75, no fees. We refinanced before we made a payment. And then we refinanced 3 times in the first 3 years. And then again, like 5 years later, and it was like, oh, okay, this is a lot better. You know, like, but it was better. Yeah, that's right.
Like, we're straight up gambling. I'm gonna.
Oh, yeah.
Here on.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I really hope they go.
That's right. Well, and
I mean, I would take 5%
Yeah.
versus 6 and 5/8.
That's right.
So.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was an 18-month deal for them to build the house. That's how far behind.
That's how far behind.
18 months.
Oh, yeah, well, that's.
And then another 3 months for them to put it on the property.
So the project they didn't want to ridge was way behind schedule because it just took that long. Right, I mean, I'm sure that he probably planned on Walnut Ridge, you know, they've got one building built, I think. That's why whenever the pictures were up there, I was like, oh, okay. But I thought he was going to Google. I thought he was gonna go to Google, they ain't gonna show on Google. But yeah, they're still building out there. Yeah, they've got, it's a similar size development as probably, but it's, yeah, they've got maybe 2 or 3 units on buildings under construction, I think. I haven't read about it.
Pictures look nice.
Pictures look nice. I've never seen it.
They do a nice job.
They do. Yeah, I've never seen it. I just care about the roads, and not walking the sewer.
I remember, talking about the water, she was talking about it flooding. I can remember, it didn't happen all the time, and it was, it's rain.
Goes over Woody Drive is a gigantic floodplain.
Well, I remember years ago when I was on patrol, all rivers would come up into the canoe access.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's absolutely true.
all the way to the road.
That's true.
And that was insane. I mean,
The one officer, what's scary is when the river floods, you know it's coming, right? Because the river floods when you get a hurricane or something gigantic, right? Town branch floods if you get a really, really big, right?
where at?
And right there on 54, right there where 54 and Woody come in, you know, if you go down here and you turn left to go up the water course, the apartments up there, that's Woody.
Yeah.
So the bottom down there, that
the
bridge,
Oh.
that thing floods, and then it floods all the way down, all the way across Hardin, you know, all the way across 54, all the way down to I. That all floods.
Can they not go around to, what is that? Something Dairy Road.
Yeah.
To go around? You know what I'm talking about?
I'm not the one who made the statement that you couldn't get in now.
Oh, by the way.
I'm just saying, I was the one who made that statement.
On the one from last month, the closing one of the 3 drives. And you and, Burke both said that it was too steep. Burke, sorry. And so it's too steep. My question is, how does the steepness of the 3rd road compare to the steepness of the existing main road in it? That's pretty steep.
Significant.
The third.
This will be.
I mean, I don't remember the top putting angles. Do you have an angle?
I think at the time, the preliminary stuff was it was gonna be at least 10%. Between 10 and 12%, correct. Which is, you see that in the mountains. You don't see that whenever possible anywhere else.
Well, I don't have a measuring trick, whatever you have for that, but the entrance in like it is that kind of steep.
You're correct. It is steep, but it's not that.
That's that. All right.
Yeah, and
so what, like 5 or 6 compared to the
5 or 6 is steep for a road. 5 or 6 is steep. It's a steep grade. And I'm not gonna say that, there's a cul-de-sac in Burlington at McIntosh that goes down at like 9 or 10%, right? Because we did the design on it. I remember going out there, something like that. What in the hell were we thinking? And because what happens is water comes down that cul-de-sac and it goes straight across the cul-de-sac, goes through the curb and runs down. And they ended up having to retrofit the driveways so they didn't go straight to garages. Because it's just, you can't help it. And that's what this will be. So there, and
what those people have done, by the way, what is their answer so far? People who got rejected for the, are they coming back to talk or are they gonna sit?
So they have sent me preliminary plans as far as how they can make it work. And I've told them that conceptually, this is what they would have to do. And then I believe you should ask the attorneys where that stands, but I believe that they have filed their appeal brief, whether they go forward with it or not is to be determined. So I think their timing was, I think they had to file the brief by 30 days maybe. And I think 30 days was the end of last week. So I believe they wanted to keep their options open because they didn't have an approved plan yet. Don't write that. I'm not.
Well, I'll have to verify.
That's correct. You can verify it, but yes, but I don't, that's right. I don't know them yet, but I think that's probably easily verifiable because if you file a brief, it's going to. So, but.
Nothing brief about that.
No. What do you think about that?
Which one?
That rejection of that special use? Not the process, because I got a huge problem with the whole process, but that's a different discussion.
It's not what it is. No, that was a bad one. And in essence, the guy's point tonight, Jennifer even could have done that. She moved all the public comments up forward and let all these people have their say, just as a public comment, not as a part of the public hearing.
Correct.
They'd have all gotten to them, and at least they'd been happy to fill that in.
Is that what his whole deal was? Is that why he does?
That's part of
Hard
it.
to know exactly what is.
Cause I've seen him here before.
He's here all the time. Or almost every month.
Yeah. And he usually mounts the podium of the thing.
The sidewalk, the sidewalk. He's correct. There should be a friggin' sidewalk going down Elm. Going down Elm toward the high school.
But it shouldn't be done by people.
Why should there be a sidewalk there?
Because there's too much pedestrian traffic on that road. That road's too wide anyway. But there's a lot of pedestrian traffic that's up and down that road.
Yeah, and
it's because there's nowhere to walk.
But the basic thing is, it's sort of like, yes, it's difficult. You got all these owners that are, families and, descendants, and all that kind of messiness and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It would take a long time to get clearance for all the rights of pay, but that's what they need to do. And not close off a lane. DOT will close a lane ever so readily, which is a problem in my mind. It's going to be a real train wreck at this roundabout that they want to do at Hardman Street. That's going to be a disaster. It's waiting to happen.
Not what's so wreck there.
This is my feeling too. It's got to be better than what's there.
I bet not.
I think eventually it'll be better than what's there.
Well, what they'll ultimately do, in my humble opinion, is they'll let it go that way for a few years. They'll still have wrecks and still have problems, and then they'll come back and say, okay, got something.
I think, this is completely off the record. I think, yes, there will be some wrecks, but I think the severity of the wrecks will be much less than what that. It will be far more property damage wrecks than personal injury wrecks.
Well, I think they're going to try to trade with that. Because they won't be able to do that.
Tom's concern is that people, I don't disagree. I don't think it's as big a deal as you do, but Tom's concern is
that the trucks coming through are gonna end up taking up too much of the lane, which is then gonna put them in conflict with cars, which means that they're gonna get.
gonna have a whole lot of movement.
Right, which is, and I see it. I don't think it's as big a concern as you do, I think. But I see the concern.
But that seems to be the go-to now, is it?
Oh, it's a fact.
In my humble opinion.
It is, and in some cases, in some cases, it's not a good idea. In this case, I think it's an okay idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's an okay idea.
These things.
I mean,
they're gonna be the size of Court Square?
Oh, no. No, it won't be that big. It'll be smaller than that, but it will be substantial in size. But I think,
Well, I'll tell you
I
one.
think we don't own the road.
We don't want
Neither one of them.
That's correct. And the owner of the road has a solution that they believe is the correct
Well, I know,
solution.
but it's a, like I said, it's a bad solution, and it's their favorite fad currently. And, it doesn't work well for big trucks. It works nicely in little subdivisions where you've got, where they're not state roads.
Down to, because I've worked.
So one of the things.
A couple rollover accidents with tractor trailers right here in the cemetery, just that little, you know, they're coming around the
You're
cemetery
correct.
and the
You're
motor
correct.
shit.
You're correct, you're correct, but on the other side of it, they will slow down because of the roundabout. So versus right now, you know, the ones that you're working with is, they're coming wide open down 49, right? And then they can't make the turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Have you seen the one over in Burlington, the Burlington Center? Outback, Pauline, whatever, they just put a little bitty
that's a
round.
little bitty.
It's like Kirkpatrick
That's a
Road.
little bitty one.
Say again?
Yes, over there, yeah, that's a little bitty.
Oh, that is disaster. Just
That's a
waiting
little
to
bitty one, too.
I know.
That's a little bitty one.
And,
Is that a DOT one or Burlington? Kirkpatrick Road's a DOT road, so I'm gonna assume it's DOT.
almost everything really comes to it.
Everything's got real traffic on it.
One-way skin cap,
I mean, to a certain extent, it's their road. I come back all the way DOT telling me what to do on city roads. But I don't like, but at the same time, I can't tell DOT, but, you know, I can't tell DOT what to do
I'm
on
not
their
ever
road.
complaining about it.
Does that make sense?
I love it when they accidentally put salt on a city.
On a
road.
city road.
So, I mean,
Oh, but some of these things, whatever this consultant firm, that wants to narrow Main Street 2 lanes, that's
Some Nathan Page bullshit.
oh, horrible.
Some Nathan Page.
I mean, that was the most outrageous thing, isn't it, with straight faces?
well, they're trying to make it a 15-minute city or whatever, you know,
Yeah. No, that was some Nathan Page bullshit.
Oh.
Yeah, the behind the scenes on that between DOT and that consultant was hilarious.
The which, did you say what?
The consultant between the downtown development consultant and the behind the scenes. You know, DOT's not gonna step out of line on that, but the behind the scenes was, this is stupid. Followed by, hey, so you're trying to accomplish a southern, what they say? So you want a southern loop. No. So you want a southern, so you're trying to establish a southern loop to get the traffic out of downtown. Didn't you just have one of the, oh shit, you guys asked to get rid of that. That was in the conversation. Apparently that was because literally the city had just
when I
voted
first
to take
started
off
here,
the southern loop. off
I
of that.
started in 2008. And when I started downtown, it was nothing like it is now, you know?
Busy now.
Correct.
Oh yeah, comparatively, yeah.
Well, I mean, I can remember when
You've been busy though for, I would say, long.
10 years, 10 to 12 years, right? Probably, right? I mean, but I agree with that. Absolutely. Absolutely. DOT is thriving. I mean, not DOT. Downtown is thriving.
Yeah.
Right? And
And a lot of it, to be honest, is Jennifer and
it is.
And
in their private capacity.
That's correct. That's correct. Not in the public capacity, in the private
I think the
capacity.
city is helped that out with, you know, like alcohol permits and stuff, because, I mean, let's be honest, people,
The policeman saying that. I agree with you.
I mean, they're just,
I agree with
it's
you.
not the same as it was. You know? Yeah.
That is,
I'm not saying we're wrong or right, don't get me wrong.
I would be glad to see. And having one 2 or 3 doors down from us.
It causes a headache, for us.
It does.
I mean, now granted, I don't do this every day anymore, so I'm
So-
just reserved, so.
So I agree with you on, I think it changes the dynamic in downtown, I think it helps the downtown as far as having, it puts
Nightlife,
people there and it, yeah, but you're right, as somebody who's not in that business, I'm sure it's a pain in the ass for you, for the police department.
Well,
It's
I'll tell you
not-
the one
yeah.
that we're gonna call them on occasionally is they keep blocking the alley. The alley is not a private alley. It is a public alleyway.
Is
And
that
yet,
the one that goes down behind CCOM?
and they'll park a, food truck out there, on the road and have a food truck for 3 or 4 hours on Thursday.
You can barely fit a car through there, much less a truck.
I know. And yet they'll take up all the room. So. And then, actually, one time is when they left the trailer out there for the night. Yeah, and so, you know, that's when we called the parking guy. Yeah. Which, by the way, I know you this. I don't know. It's nothing about him per se. It's not like he personally is horrible. The whole concept is horrible. It's right. And,
I agree.
yeah. And Graham is the only one that does it, which all things calls, you know, well, that's such a great idea. How come Burlington doesn't have one? How come Evan doesn't have one?
The one that used to work here comes from Burlington.
Yeah. But
But
they
they
don't
retired.
Well, I know, I don't think they've replaced it. So,
Can you not? I mean, would it not be more beneficial than meters? I mean, if you're trying to.
well, see, we've been that route. I mean, it's just like, this is the thing in Washington city government. It's like, you know, circular. Just like, I think the roundabouts are gonna be circular. That's gonna be the.
Well, they're circular.
That, well, that's gonna be the
I had to
equivalent
do that to
of the pedestrian mall that killed Rita downtown. Graham-
I agree. I see what you're saying.
Burlington.
I see what you're saying.
And, you know,
I think the biggest.
Well, look, all of that stuff works in certain circumstances. It works great and it looks great. It doesn't work everywhere,
no,
right? It doesn't work everywhere.
but they always try to make it.
That's correct.
I get
That's the problem, is let me go to a class and I'll have somebody tell me that this is the perfect idea.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect solution for me.
I get
It's
the
not,
biggest kick out of seeing the bike racks on the sidewalk and then the bicycle on the sidewalk. Wow, that is, I get the biggest enjoyment out of that.
that's the type of stuff yeah.
I mean, it's a small thing, right?
No, there's a.
You know, I cannot remember seeing a bike rack with a bike in it.
Ever.
Ever.
The only thing I've seen is the drunk people leaving bars tripping over the bike rack.
Yeah, yes.
That's a self-corrected problem, though. I mean.
Can't get to your.
Now,
car.
why are you on the, part-time, or would you say you're auxiliary now?
Reserved, yeah.
Reserved?
Yeah.
Why aren't you regular?
I don't
Are you
know.
old enough to retire?
Well, my family owns 3 furniture companies, so I've done this before. But when I worked for them and then wanted to get out and do something different. My wife works for the jail, so, I'm sheriff department, she's in the jail. And, it got to the point where she was moving up in her career, I was moving up in my career. One of us had to get out, so she had more years in there than I had here, and I had the family to get all that on. So
That's what you're doing now?
yeah,
What's the company name? That I've heard of?
it's all mattress companies. We make mattresses for college dorms, we do military contracts, specialty bedding, reliable bedding, DNL bedding, and all. No national, like, you know, we're not a mid-major national brand, but we make a lot of national brands mattresses. So they're just, they're labeled under.
I like being
Next
on
time, we've
auxiliary.
done that for years.
I like being on the auxiliary.
It's like, control. But, I like, get called from the VA's office, so just show up and go over there. Don't get subpoenaed anymore, so.
I'm just curious.
It's not, the job is not what it used to be. It's just, and I'm in a different point in my life. I still enjoy it, don't get me wrong, I enjoy helping people, but I don't wanna be up at 2 o'clock in the morning, doing that stuff anymore.
Were you up by the chance of the fire last night?
I was not, I was home in bed.
I was. I knew about it. No, still at some bed.
I didn't hear about it this morning, which is typical for the newspaper guys, to the last to hear about it. I just wonder,
I know about it.
don't know, nobody told me. I just wonder if it's, what are the words?
So there's two ways to think about it, right? One is that if somebody set it on fire, or, okay, well, why'd you set it on fire? Like if you did it on purpose. The other side of it is, it's gotten cold at night.
Yeah, that's, I think.
And the same, last time they never found anything.
Right.
And the
There's no way to
supposition,
find anything.
that's right.
It's too big.
That's right. And the
There's no way you're
supposition,
gonna get a dog in there.
well, yeah, you get cold, you're homeless. It's never been secure. It's got people in and out of it all the time. I mean, no fault of anybody, just it's not secure.
Right.
And you get cold, you start a fire gets out of control, shit, I'm out of here. That's the good side. The bad side is you're high and you start a fire and you're asleep, and then we find a body out there. That's the bad side.
The bad thing is it could be weeks before you find a body.
That's correct. That's correct. That's the scary part. I mean, that's the scary part.
And then another scary part is, unless they corrected it, I didn't ask the question that turned to that topic, but those people are way behind. And
I thought county foreclosed.
I don't know.
I think county foreclosed.
Did they?
Something else for you to check.
All right.
Yeah, I think the county foreclosed on them. I think it's supposed to go for auction.
Okay.
I think there was a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
They were
Taxes?
Taxes.
Yeah, both city and county.
But
big is
the
that
city
farm?
didn't.
It's big.
I mean, it's a good chunk, but
20 acres.
it's a good chunk. Yeah, it's a good chunk, but man, with the buildings on it, and there's just the tearing it all out, the cleanup on it, it's a nightmare. Just before the fire,
I couldn't imagine. That's probably
$2 million.
I would say 5,
Mm-hmm.
probably.
So, yeah. I was very pleased that the water system worked. No, that was my.
Chief said 220,000 gallons.
I mean, probably. I mean, the water system can give you.
He said that's what he heard.
The water system can give you somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 gallons in that location.
Wow.
You can't get that all out of one hydrant. You can get about 1,500 to 2,000 out of each hydrant. But at some point, I had a picture somebody sent me. At some point, they were putting, there were 4 aerials spraying them. So
The ladder truck might pay for itself in last month.
I mean, if you think about it, if you kept one of those walls from falling on somebody, then it did. But you're not gonna know.
Especially falling outward.
That's right. Or on a fire.
Yeah.
And I know the last time Tommy's big concern, which I agreed with, was, he was freaking out about some of the fire departments that weren't directly under his command, some of the other fire departments going into the building that just collapsed. And that was what scared him about that scenario. So hopefully this
guy.
I don't disagree, right? I mean, because that's.
It's your baby. If you're the chief, that's your baby.
And
And
this
the last
is.
thing you want is somebody from another agency that comes
Comes in and
out.
gets killed. Yep. Yeah, so this time, hopefully, I think it was on fire enough that when they got there, that I think that wasn't a problem. But, I mean, they got, the walls fell and there was enough debris falling that I think a couple of them got scared a little bit. I mean, in a good way,
Probably where it is. Fear's not a bad thing, fear's not always a bad thing.
No, if you don't have any fear, that's when you need.
That's when
Yeah.
you need a new job if you don't have any fear in some cases, yeah.
And I'll admit that. I mean, that's.
Everybody ought to be scared every now and then. No matter who you are, what your job is, everybody ought to be scared every now and then. No, I asked about the auxiliary thing. Rob Elliott and Gibson, our first director, but he's also an auxiliary with the.
With Gibsonville
With
PD?
Gibsonville PD.
Where was he at before?
Castle County.
Okay.
Yeah. He quit from Gibsonville, went to Castle, quit from Gibsonville Public Works to go to County Sheriff's Department, worked there for, I don't know, a while. And then, they called him, hey, we can get you that money now, you know what, I'm kind of tired of doing this anyway, so he still maintains all his qualifications. To be an auxiliary.
Ron's a good guy, chief over there, he's.
I like Ron. A whole lot of people don't like Ron. And I don't know why. I mean, no, that's not true. I can see why.
He's so full of himself, if I can just fill in the blank.
You can say it quite like that. But
I was here when all the stuff happened with the whole DOJ thing. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's never been outright said, but I don't know. People speculating, but.
Yeah.
I remember when we just worked the sheriff department.
Yeah. Ron. I think most people there now like him, but that's quite a turnover. Quite a turnover since he started.
That's he hired him. Of course they like him. It's like a sign my dad used to have at the office. He may not always be right, but he is never in doubt.
That's, yes. All right, Tom, I'm leaving. You got any other questions?
No, I think I've exhausted.
You think of
my
anything
list
else?
For you, and, I couldn't believe the $500,000. It was like, wow.
No, I'd be more than that.
Well, I'll look in the, like I
Yeah.
say, back it out. Yeah, I often don't, read everything ahead of time. And,
Yeah, it was a lot. It,
Yeah.
it's a.
There's a storage.
Quite a,
Yes.
quite a
Yeah.
statement.
all right.
The storage, actually, the way they were talking about it was just a transfer facility. There was no storage.
Guys, guys.
Stop.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let's get.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Mama. Okay.
Definition of trash. That's for this, let's go home. Where's she? She's talking to the city manager.
Can we make a motion without her?
Well, we got the mayor pro tem, the vice mayor here.
The motion to go into open session.
I make a motion that we go into, open session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second,
I make a motion that we adjourn.
we got it all in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn. Hobbs, second.
Second.
Second.